Welcome back to TM87. I'll always be swagger to us.
Don't let anyone taunt you about that one.
As always, I'm here with my co-hosts Sheldon and Anthony. Sheldon, how you doing?
Yo, thanks for asking, Rayad. I'm doing pretty great, man. I'm excited for today's episode. What about you, Ant?
Yeah, I'm hyped. You know, we're doing things a little different today. We got a very special guest. Not only one of the most recent regional winners, the winner of the Charlotte Regional Championships, but probably, in my opinion, one of the best looking motherfuckers in the scene, Justin Carris. How you doing, Justin?
I'm feeling good, man. I appreciate that intro. I don't know if I agree with it, especially when someone like you plays Pokemon, but yeah, I mean, I would say you're definitely one of the more attractive people, but
Oh, shot, they're gassing each other like this.
Hey, bro, come on, bro. We gotta keep it in the squad, bro. You gotta gas your kings, you know, like we gotta lift each other up.
Have you seen him smile, bro? Like, come on,
Oh,
lights
bro.
up the room with those pearly whites.
Hey,
Come on now. This guy knows how to finesse. Riz off the charts. This guy fucks, absolutely.
All right. So thank you for that, Anthony. So yeah, guys, we have Justin here, and we're really excited to have him. But we just want to give a quick disclaimer here that any opinions that we express, Anthony, Rayad, or myself on the podcast are not entirely shared with Justin unless he explicitly, says that himself. So yeah, there you go, guys. But after that, let's move into the questions. So we're gonna start a new bit here whenever we have a guest, where we ask them three questions to get to know the person better. They're not gonna be Pokemon centric. They'll be a little bit more generic, so that anyone that we have on will be able to answer it and give us a little bit more of a background into themselves. So with that, Ant, we'll start off with you. What do you have to ask Justin?
Yeah, I got a fire question. It I think relates to anyone. Justin, what's your go-to song that gets you locked in before a tournament, or when you're at the gym, something that just gets you going, like hyped up? What's your go-to song on your Spotify playlist or your Apple Music? What do you usually turn on first when you're trying to get in that hyped move?
It can change for me depending on my mood. I think typically one of the newer songs that I like, it's called Really Damn Long Day by Gus Glasser. It's like a TikTok song, but I just feel like it's super mellow, super chill, helps me get relaxed and focused pretty easily.
Got you. I mean, hey, ain't nothing wrong with the TikTok songs. I think in the last couple of years, TikTok has been pushing the music industry forward, so can't even knock it, bro.
Yeah, there might be some other options too. Like I like a lot of like Flux Pavilion stuff, like some dubstep.
Okay.
And,
Yo, Sheldon, you know about that
That's sick.
dubstep life. I remember this guy used to.
Yo, I think Rayad and I would definitely, we're down with that, because I think back in the MW2 days, those sniping montages, the montages are crazy, bro. They lived off of dubstep. It was amazing.
also like From the Inside by Linkin Park.
Okay, sick.
Okay.
Oh, do you
That's
know
like
that
If I
other
Need
song?
Energy.
What is it? Mount Eden, Sierra Leone, something like that. Do you know it?
No, I don't know what you're talking about.
Damn. All right, roasted. Well, let's move
No,
on.
that's me not having the education there. I promise. My music is like very niche. Sometimes I like a lot of pop. Oh, the Veronicas too. Untouched.
Yo, Veronica's Untouched. Yo, banger. I know exactly what this motherfucker putting down right now.
Yeah.
Banger, bro. AMVs used to go
Copy.
crazy that song. If you know, you know.
I appreciate the modesty there. All right, let's move on to the second question. This one will be from me. I think this should be relatively cool, and I definitely would like to know this. You just found out that the world is going to end tomorrow. What would be your last meal?
Morbid as fuck.
My last
though,
meal.
The world's about to end.
I don't know. Probably whatever my grandma's cooking, man.
God.
Mm.
Got you. Any go-to dishes that grandma be spinning up?
She makes a pretty mean rice and chicken.
Oh,
That should be
yo,
busting for real.
He about the gains, bro. I love it. He about the gains.
Yeah,
Let me find
abuela.
out.
Yeah, right.
Out
You
the
see
this
chicken
guy's
over
arms,
rice.
bro?
Let me find out.
Sheesh.
Come on,
Let me
bro.
find out Abuela putting out the chicken over rice.
He'll body you
I'll
in
subscribe.
finals and beat you up after, bro. Like,
Oh,
God
come
damn.
on now.
All right, I got one last question for you, Justin. If you could have a conversation with anyone, dead or alive, what would it be, and why?
Oh man.
Think about this one.
Oof. Do they have to
That's a tough
speak
one, bro.
English?
Hey, what'd you say?
No,
They
no,
have to
they
speak
don't.
Nah, we got
English?
like a universal translator like built into your ear, so no
Yeah,
matter who
like
it is, you could talk to them. They'll understand you. You understand them.
I'd love to have a conversation with like one of the old classical composers, like Beethoven
Oh,
or like
Beethoven.
Mozart.
Yo, Beethoven, bro. Like, god damn.
Yo, you know, back in the day when he dropped some new music, bro, everyone was like, "Yo,
You
this
know
shit
he's
is
dropping a banger,
bussin'."
bro.
Hmm.
Respectfully,
Yo, this shit fire right now, bro.
Yeah, I'd love to hear about like
That's an answer, bro.
all the
Wow.
wenches dropping their petticoats to that.
The wenches, bro.
the maidens.
Come on now.
Wait, why Beethoven though? Like, why the classical composers?
I just feel like they carved out their own thing with music.
Mm.
It was just so different from what everything else at the time.
It's
I feel
not
like
Future
Beethoven-
dropped-
Well, Beethoven, like I mean, his music was just very like emotional
Mm.
for the period that he was in, and like it just, I don't know, he really knew how to light the symphony up. So I would love to hear about his like creative process. He was kind of like a genius too, so like
Mhm.
I'd ask him for like tips on
Nah.
how to handle like all of the music that's going on in his head, how he puts it in
Mm.
on paper.
I could get behind that. I remember back in the day in college, bro. Yo, you guys know Alvin, right? Well, Carris, you probably don't, but these two fools know Dad, Alvin. Me and this guy, we used to blast Beethoven around campus just for shits and giggles, just because that shit was fire. Shit got us going, bro. 6 a.m. in the morning. Oh, not 6 a.m., but like 7 a.m. in the morning before we hit the lab. Psh, Beethoven,
Ain't no way, bro.
Mozart.
Yo, don't they play classical
Yeah,
music for babies and stuff?
Wolfgang Mozart,
Mhm.
bro.
Mm-hmm. Ludwig.
Amadeus.
Wolfgang.
Amadeus.
But yeah, I think that's a great answer. Wait, we've never done the questions before, so I do want to ask Rayad and Sheldon. Maybe we'll not do all three questions, but what's your two's go-to songs right now? Rayad?
Oh, mine.
Yeah. What's your
Yo,
go-to
so,
locked
the
in
last
song?
few times I went to a regional, I didn't listen to any music before
Mm.
my runs. I kind of so I don't know how much longer I'm gonna be playing Pokemon. Right? Like this might be the last year. I might play next year. I don't know. I'm having fun this year,
Yeah.
so I might play next year. I might play the year after. Who knows? But I'm trying to like before like I lock into like round one. I'm trying to like take it all in. Just see like like, enjoy the environment, like whatever, like and just like just take it all in. So I haven't been locking in. It's mainly because I lost my AirPods, so I can't really. I have like my gym like headphones, but like I'm not gonna use those.
It's not the same.
Those shit. It's not the same.
Mhm.
It's not the same. So I haven't been really
fair,
listening to
that's
music. But look, you can never go wrong with Eye of the Tiger, bro. 2011, 2012, bro. I was locking in with Eye of the Tiger, bro.
Mhm. Before that,
Actually-
best of one, single limb.
That shit used to go hard, bro. That shit used to go hard.
That shit got you going.
Yeah, that's the one song that I'll always listen to if it comes to Pokemon. Cause I think I don't know who it was. Like we used to listen to that. Like there was something going on with Pokemon around that time that like Eye of the Tiger was like the song that you had to listen to.
I don't know. It
Can't
might have
remember
been a
what
thing on Smoke on Breath. Let's be real.
It might have been a thing in singles actually, like OU singles, like
Like a Maryland video or some shit.
Yeah, some
Yeah,
shit like
yeah.
that. But yeah,
I
Eye of
feel
the
you, I
Tiger
feel you.
used to go hard, bro. I remember listening to that shit back in the day.
That's good choice. Good choice. I mean, classic.
What
I
about
don't
you?
think anyone. Myself? Right now, I've been on the superhero wave from the new future.
Metro Boomin? Metro
I
Boomin?
like that song.
Yeah, Metro Boomin. Yeah.
Mm.
That shit.
On
That shit
time,
goes hard,
on
bro.
time into superhero, bro.
Every regional, bro. I put this shit on. I feel good going to the first round. Can't say anything beyond that first round, but the first round, I'm feeling good. I'm locked in. I'm ready to take souls. But beyond that though, I've been having some rough runs, but I'm looking to change that in the next couple tournaments. You'll see. Maybe Justin, you got some coaching coming. Coming this way.
I do actually do coaching.
right,
I'm very private about it. I pretty much anybody that's ever DM'd me and asked me to coach, I do it. But
Yo, this is me DMing you on the podcast right now. I need coaching, my brother.
I would be
So,
glad to help. I just put together a coaching Discord with all my students, and like I just have to organize it a little bit better. I'm like
Yeah,
very
for sure,
very
for
busy. I own like a business, and then I work a full day job and do Pokemon
Man's
and have
on
a
the
girlfriend.
grind.
So
I feel you, bro. Like it's hard to balance everything, but if you could sneak a little time in for me here and there, I'd love to take a session or two with you just to up my game. Because I know
Yeah, for sure.
coming from someone with as much experience as you do, it'd be a worthwhile time.
my coaching is really centered around like giving you as much as I can in like the most efficient manner possible. I think the thing with coaching is a lot of people want to teach everybody like over time and like just get like people, you know, re-upping on lessons, and you want people like that's kind of how you build the coaching business.
Right.
I'm not trying to build a business for it. I'm trying to teach people like how you develop as a player. Like you have to figure out a process for yourself. Majority of the way that people learn is it's different for everybody. So it's like, well, what do you like? Do you like replay review? Do you just like spamming ladder games? Do you want to like do like in-depth like practice and team building? A lot of people waste time on team building and stuff like that. I'll teach people like very 3 core principles. Like this is what you need to learn when it comes to your play. This is kind of where you can figure out how to get better in the builder, and this is how you get better at performing at actual tournaments.
Hey, y'all heard it here first. You know, Justin got the exclusive coaching sessions where he goes through a holistic approach to, you know, the learning process and improving your game. So yeah,
I mean, Sheldon and I had this. I'm not to cut you off. Sheldon and I had this debate, like on the car ride back from Charlotte, just like whether you should spend more time team building or like more best of 3 practice or like ladder practice or any just putting your team into motion and just figuring out like what's wrong with it, or you know how you can make it better. Sheldon is leaning more towards the team building side, and I was leaning more towards the practice side. So like it's good to hear your input on that.
Yeah, I think for everybody it really is different. There's a really good talk I had with Talon, Cedric Bernier, after San Diego. A lot of people might not know, like I bombed San Diego, and Talon told me something that really kind of opened my eyes. He said, he's like, you need to stop trying to win in the builder, and you need to try like practicing and like get better at like making plays, but using your team to win rather than trying to build a team that can win. So like typically like I'll say normally like, yes, you can do a lot of the work in the builder, but if you're not like a naturally like organically good team builder, there's tons of teams out there that like already have the sauce. They already have all the tools. Practice with those, get better at those types of things, figure out where you're making plays wrong, watch your replays back, say, oh, I messed up here. Figure out whether it's a closed team sheet problem or an open team sheet thing that like you're just not paying attention to. And then you go from there. Like team building, you can find like niche things that work, and you can find like the meta call or maybe like a really cool archetype that hasn't been explored properly. But typically a lot of the best stuff has already been like created and put into practice, and you can use that stuff to build off of rather than try and like start from scratch every time. There's very few people in this game that are capable of just coming up with a team like on their own, refining all of the tools. Like maybe like I could probably count it on less than one hand.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very good point. You know, especially depending on where we are in the metagame. Like, you know, by the time Charlotte was rolling around, we were deep into Series 2. Maybe it is more useful to kind of go about that team building aspect at the beginning of a format where everyone's still kind of trying to figure everything out. But then, like, as the metagame develops and we've seen those big finishes, we kind of get an idea where the metagame's centralizing around. That kind of aspect of the approach of preparing for a tournament doesn't become as useful, in my opinion, because you kind of already know what works. So I definitely see what you're saying. You know, it depends on, you know, who's preparing for the tournament and when they're preparing too. I think is also something people have to take account for.
Yeah, and the metagame like shifts over time, and sometimes it doesn't shift as drastically as people think. Like over Series 2, pretty much all of the established archetypes were explored by like Knoxville or Orlando. And I went into the builder with like the rest of the team building groups that I'm a part of, and I tried, like I wanted to find like new variations of teams, like the Flutter Torkoal stuff was something I explored. Mousehold Palafin was something I explored. And it just took me like, you know, a little bit of practice, a little bit of, you know, seshing, doing best of 3s with talented players to figure out like, oh, I mean, the team that I'm using right now doesn't really lose to anything. It's just like how I approach the matchup. I can just retool it. Things aren't changing so much that I need to be worried about my matchups.
Right. That's another thing I'm thinking about too. Is kind of like, as long as you have a line into a matchup, like it could be a poor matchup. Like I used Marcus's team that he won Wo-Chien with at Charlotte, and I knew like my Lily Cole matchup was really bad, right? But I had a line into it. And it's kind of like you, at the end of the day, you still have to play Pokemon when you play your matchups, right? Like it's kind of like, yeah, you might have a bad matchup or it's unfavorable, like in your favor, but you still have to, the person still has to outplay you, one, and then you're gonna be making mid-game adjustments too, like in every single game that you play. So it's kind of like who's making the better mid-game adjustments. That's what it's gonna come down to. And you can have a crit or a flinch or something go your way that kind of shifts the whole game in your favor or out of your favor. Like you still have to play Pokemon, like no matter what the matchup is. So like I'm not too big on matchups. You should have a line going into most matchups that you have with your team that you're planning on bringing, but it's like it's gonna come down to how you play on the day. Like you could have the best matchup, a favorable matchup against pretty much every archetype in the metagame right now, but like if your play is bad on the day, like it's not gonna be good for you.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, let's move on. We're still lingering on these 3 questions. We have a lot to talk about with Justin. We want to use this time wisely. Not much really going on in current events, to be honest. They got some stuff going on with the TCG. They got some new Scarlet and Violet cards coming out, but we're a VGC podcast. If you're into that, you're into that. If you're not, you're not. They also got the Samurai raids going on, and last week they had the busted Blissey event, which I think was fire. We could get like a shit ton of Terrace shards. That was actually very valid because I made some changes to my team before Charlotte, and I needed those freaking shards. So
those shards are a blessing.
That's what I'm saying, bro. Like I was just wiping out these Blissies, and stacking up on that shit because it is hard to get a hold of some of these shards. And what else? They got some tornadoes. I heard some people encountered some tornadoes going into Fort Wayne, so luckily no one got hurt that we know of, at least according to Twitter, so that's good. Hopefully not too many people were affected by that, but let's just move on to the bulk of the podcast. What we want to talk about, the nitty-gritty of the Charlotte Regional Championships that happened last weekend. Rayad, you want to take it off from here, or Sheldon?
Sheldon had the better run, so I'm gonna let him take the mic.
Correction, Justin had the best run, but yeah, I'll take it
We'll
from
get
here.
there,
Oh,
Matt.
by the way, I didn't answer my question about the song. I just remembered. Right now, at the regional, this kind of plays into the regional thing. So yeah, at the regional, I was listening to Rich Flex by Drake and 21 Savage. That was my go-to.
Oh,
That's a banger.
fire.
That's a banger.
That was definitely the go-to, and it definitely helped me. I think I lost one game one in like 9 rounds or something. Like it was crazy.
Sheesh.
Like I was onto it. But yeah, so let's go to Charlotte. So yeah, Charlotte was last weekend. For those who don't know, it was the 1st and 2nd of April. All 4 of us here actually
No,
partook
bro.
this-
It was the week before the 1st and 2nd.
Oh,
You
was it
misspoke.
2? My bad.
Come on, bro. This is the 1st and 2nd, bro.
It's the 1st and 2nd today, bro.
Calendar got
That's
me
what I'm
messed up, bro. I'm sorry, bro. Sorry.
I'm tripping on the days, bro.
Yeah, the roast session's crazy out here. All right. So yeah, all 4 of us took part. It was a great event. There were about 730 masters. And there was a day 2 as well. So I ended up going 6-3 at the event. I lost my last round to I guess bubble into day 2, if you want to say, against Robbie Moore. He
Lost
played
your winning in match.
the winning. All right, there you go. I lost my winning in match. Sorry. Like I said, first event of the. This is my first event in like 5 years, actually. I think. Jesus, I haven't played in a while. I mean, I've been playing.
Since Hartford, right?
Yeah, bro. It's been a really long time. I mean, I've been like following the scene, as you guys know. It's just I haven't gone to an event really in a long time. But yeah, so like I said, I lost my match. I ended up going 6-3. Didn't make day 2. Tough loss. And I think Ant and Rayad also had positive records, and I'll let them cover that. And then we'll get to Justin, of course. The god himself. But yeah, go ahead. Ant or Rayad, take it away.
I mean, I went 6-3 too, but I did lose my 3rd match pretty early in the tournament, so I didn't really have a chance of cutting. I tried getting some CP, but I also bubbled on CP as well, so it was unfortunate. It was a fun tournament. I really wish I didn't have much practice leading up to it. I kind of just, I used the team that Marcus used at the Wo-Chien regionals. That team was fun. That team was fun as hell. And I think it also has a place in Series 3 as well. Just with a slight few tweaks. I think Goldango is still pretty good. Zaman, especially Specs Goldango, I think that like everyone sleeps on it. I know Anthony sleeps on it. He says it's not good. I don't believe that. I think Goldango is really good. Like I'm just gonna say it. Like Specs Goldango, like make a range. It does so much damage into a lot of things in the format, like Flutter, Bundle. Like it's mods that you kind of force terrors out of as well. So it's kind of, if you're ever in a situation to force a terror out, like I think that's a good position to be in. But yeah, so I used that team. I went 6-3. Yeah, I mean, obviously I could have asked for a better finish, but it is what it is. It was still an overall fun regional. Anthony, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, I had a tough run, bro. I went 5-4. I played like ass. Keep it the bean. I used the same team as Sheldon, fire team. I don't think it was anything wrong with the team. But I guess it comes down to performing day of. You know, you could do well online, you know, playing on Showdown and all that. But when it comes to day of, you know, knowing when to turn it on and, you know, being in the driver's seat. Sometimes you have it, sometimes you don't. And clearly last week I didn't have it. I had a pretty decent start. I was 3-1 at one point, but then I just lost like 3 straight, and you know, shat the bed, and I was out of a chance for CP or anything. So it happens. I mean, at one point we talked to Justin. This was, I think, like one of the early rounds, and we all had the same record. We were all like X1, and Justin wasn't feeling himself. You know, Justin, you lost round 1, I believe. And how do you turn on the ice at that point and, you know, lock in, recompose, and win out, you know, the next, what was it, 8 rounds? That's my question.
Yeah, so to give a little bit of context, I started the day off 0-1. I ran into a matchup that was like, it felt like the best counter team somebody could have ever built to beat me. And it was still winnable. Like, I don't really feel like my team has like big enough holes that you can exploit even with like 6 Pokemon that just beat my team. The game 3 scenario that I ended up in, like, I was just 1 Terra decision away from winning. So I wasn't feeling too bad about the loss. I felt like it was a tough matchup. I still figured out a lot, and my opponent played really well, so it wasn't like I was getting like wrecked by, like, you know, somebody that was just showing up to their first tournament and used like an in-game team or anything. The next round I played, I felt like I got unlucky in my draw. I had to play Dylan Salvanera at 0-1, and he had just gotten top 4 at Vancouver. The matchup, I got extremely lucky when I played against Dylan, and I felt like I couldn't let that go to waste. To lock in, I actually like messaged a bunch of people, and I asked like, how do I like recompose myself? Like, how do I focus? I talked to some friends in like the Smash scene. I talked to people in like, you know, my Wolf group. I was like, guys, I need to like really like lock in and focus. And everybody told me, they're like, what are you here to do? And that was pretty much like universally the answer. And I was like, I'm here to win. So once I focused on that, it was just about like sitting down, taking it one game at a time.
Yeah, I mean, Dylan's a tough drawer. I played him in my last round in Orlando, and that dude, when he's on, he turns it on. Like, during our set in Orlando, like, you know, game 1, he kind of played a little so-so, like he was off. But by the time we got to game 3, the dude was hard reading, you know, playing out of his mind, and he showed that again in Knoxville when it was Vancouver that he topped 4. And the dude's a great player, and I definitely can see that, you know, like you said, tough draw for sure, but you recomposed and you managed to lock in. So it's good to know, like, focusing in on your goal, you know, ultimately for the event was what was able to get you back to focus up and, you know, get your head back into the game.
Piggybacking off of what Justin said about taking it 1 round at a time, I think that's one thing that I really took away from this weekend. I mean, was I remember between every round I'd meet up with you guys and I'd say, hey, like, you know, like I won, or if I lost, I lost. But I think the most important thing was, even when you guys were hyping me up, and I want Justin's feedback on this, whether I was being hyped up or you know, like, you know, people are saying, you know, you're gonna win out from here or whatever. I think the approach I took was exactly what Justin said, 1 at a time. I literally kept telling you guys, like, this is the gulag, and I just need to win every match to redeploy every single time. And I just approached every single game like that, like it was the gulag, and I think that really helped my mental. So yeah, Justin, what do you think about that approach?
I think that, like, so something that I focus a lot on, I'm always trying to develop as a player. Because it's kind of a game of inches, especially when you reach like when you break through kind of like that last plateau of where you were at in like the tournament before, like the season before. You're always trying to figure out what you can do to improve your game. And it's not just about like clicking the right moves and like coming up with game plans. A lot of it is like intangible skills that you can only really practice in the moment. And there's 2 specific skills that I've been trying to focus on a lot lately. And that is like improvisation under like stressful scenarios, and then like really locking up mid games. when something goes awry. So they kind of go
Right.
hand in hand, but there was a lot of scenarios in this tournament where I had to figure out a matchup on the fly. Like I was playing against like a Grimsnarl Rotom Wash team that I had like no idea how to crack the bulk. I didn't know a lot of my rolls or my damage calculations. And I feel like I was really able to apply, you know, very unique solutions to those problems that I was coming up with like in the moment, like as the turn was progressing. And then the mid game part of that, I think I really got to execute on well in day 2, where I was playing again a lot of matchups where I had no idea what was happening, or I was playing really strong players that were using teams that were matchups that I practiced, but they were using them so differently. Like my team was popular by Charlotte. It was the last tournament. It's the 3rd time that I'm running it. So I know players had their lines ready for me. So it was about figuring out, kind of like deducing what they were going to do to stop my team's offense, and figure out how like that would give me like reads, better positional play. Like, can I not protect in front of like an Iron Bundle with my great Tusk because people are so focused on me like being so scared by that pressure of that Iron Bundle? I got away with that a lot. There was a lot of turns where like people didn't expect my Fluttermane to have so much bulk, and I was able to capitalize on that, just like clicking attacks instead of having to pivot. But yeah, so those skills, those intangible things, those are the things that I was working on, and that's kind of how you go from tournament to tournament and get progressively better. You'll see that from like players. Like I think a good example of this is like Luca Trezeguet has gotten top 4 I think at 3 consecutive tournaments. I don't know if they ended up going to Vancouver, but they got top 4 at Charlotte, top 4 at recently just Fort Wayne, and top 4 at Knoxville as well. And I feel like they're probably somebody that's really getting better at those intangible skills, getting better in tournament, practicing their matchups. And comfort plays a big part in that, being able to use a team that you know inside out. But when you're in a tournament setting, like there's so many scenarios where you can apply these things and test yourself. Like tournaments, especially regionals, because they're not like an international or worlds, those are like really like the big biscuit. You get to practice the things that make you the best version of yourself as a player. And you have to be able to measure that in real time. Like, what are your performance metrics? Did you get lucky? Can you ignore that? Was your game state fine regardless of the luck? Were you applying like specific matchups? Were you making good, comfortable like plays, or like good neutral plays that were just going to win you the game regardless? All of that stuff kind of plays a big factor into how you develop.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with your point about the mid-game adjustment stuff, because like I feel like you can have lines into literally like any matchup, or just like any player, or like whatever it is. Like, but when you get to the mid game and you have to kind of make those reads, or like, you know, you have to kind of execute your plays and, you know, pin opponents, or just figure out like ways to win the chess match. Like that's what makes or breaks the player, I feel. So I completely agree with that point. But as for you, like, I know you spoke to us, I think, a few times just about like, you know, getting into like the top 8 or like, you know, top 16, making top cut, but you couldn't just get over that hump, you know, to get to the finals and to win the tournament outright. Like what would you suggest to anyone that's struggling right now that just can't get over the hump? Like what kind of mindset shift do they have to get into, or like what maybe changes do they have to make to their prep leading up to a tournament? Like what would you suggest as someone that has gotten over that hump and won their first regional? How would you go about that?
If I were talking to like a blank slate, like a blank canvas, trying to fill an empty cup, and they didn't know the answer, like for what they would have to do themselves as a player, I would ask a bunch of questions, and it would be, you know, what do you feel like is stopping you from winning these sets? Is it like nerves is a big thing? Is it performance under pressure? Do you feel like you're not playing at your best in these big situations? That's something that I think really hindered me in those top 8s and top 16s and like day 2 scenarios. I would be like, you get gassed, you run out of stamina, you run out of energy, you're like being able to like apply everything that you've worked on in those low energy scenarios, or when the day is really long, against people that are pretty much fighting as hard and are as skilled as you. You have to be able to like elevate your game in those scenarios, kind of like, you know, Damian Lillard. Like that man shines in the 4th quarter. He hits the shots when he's tired. He takes the big shots. He's never afraid of those scenarios. I wouldn't say that there's anything that I've done specifically to get better at that. I feel like I've always had some type of talent when it comes to performing under pressure. But the missing ingredient for me was that stamina aspect. I had to be in those scenarios more to be able to know, like, all right, this person isn't going to be running the standard lines that I'm used to. They're going to be going for big plays. They're going to be going for the hard reads because they know I'm a quality player and they're a quality player. They're capitalizing on me trying to like get into a better position. So in these scenarios, like top 8 at Charlotte was very interesting. I played against Zachary Thornburg, who I had played in Knoxville as well and lost to in kind of a messy set. Our game 1 was really tough because like he got double protect on Flutter that basically won him the game, and then a double crit after Draco Meteor drop on Tatsu. And like it took me completely out of the game and I lost that, and I was like pretty tilted going into game 2 and kind of abandoned some of like the adjustments that I probably would have needed to make if I had felt more comfortable or if I had relaxed and just focused on my game plans. But going into top 8 this time, like he was again very prepared for me. Like he was doing things that I had no idea that he was going to do. He was making crazy reads, crazy plays at all times, and I just realized in those moments I had to elevate in order to be able to break through that barrier. I have perpetually like been capped at top 8. I got top 8 at Madison in 2017, top 8 at Worlds. I was always like that one round short of a trophy. And one thing that I adhered to, like I said before, is like my goal was to win. When I got that close again, top 8 to winning, I was like, I want to win so badly. And that helped me be a little bit more risky, a little bit more brave, I should say, in scenarios where I know I'm like, all right, I can't just go for the standard play. They're going to be doing things that you're not going to run into like at 1700s on Showdown. You're going to be
right.
They're going to be making plays to win the tournament. So figuring that part out, I think really helped me. And then confidence, I think, is a big thing too. So I, again, on that same vein of asking that blank canvas questions, I would say like, how confident do you feel when you're in these high pressure scenarios? Like, do you feel like you're the best player at that tournament? And it's not like an ego thing. In some ways it is, but I'm not saying like you should develop like this massive ego in order to be able to perform, but be confident. I think right before I went into top 4 with Luca, I was confident in my matchup. I was confident in my game plans. I was confident in my plays. I just came off of like a very, very intense set against Zach, and I 2-0'd. I got a shadow ball crit to 2. I won't say it was like a comfortable win, but I played really, really well in game 2 to close it out. And I texted a bunch of my like friends. I was like, all right, like, you know, tips on the matchup. What do I need to be wary of? We were talking about habits was a big thing too. Like he liked to Terra his King Gambit, which was useful information in how I was gonna like deduce my best lines. But even before I went into the match, I like messaged a bunch of friends in my group and I was like, guys, I'm about to schmoove on this kid. I'm about to stunt. Like, you guys need to watch this. It's gonna be beautiful. And it wasn't the cleanest win, but like game 1, I was so confident, and I think I played perfectly game 1 of that set. And I feel like the confidence was a big element to that. And Luca adjusted, and my confidence got a little bit shaken, but I still did like figured out like how I was gonna, you know, plan my end games in game 2 and 3. And there were some things that happened that kind of messed up with like my information. I thought my bundle was faster than him, which was wrong, because I like miscounted a turn of Tailwind in game 1. But confidence was really big, helped me in that game 1, and then I think it still was there for the game 2 and game 3. Like going into game 3, even though I lost game 2, I was so ready. Like I was like, I'm still confident. I still want to win this thing, and I played fine.
Got you. Speaking of confidence, this is great because I my next question definitely relates, and this is I think a skill that a lot of newer players don't really like check out, especially in a best of 3 format or look into too much. And this is definitely, I'd assume, like something that you definitely cover in your coachings. Is what how the leads go in between games, right? So I'm gonna give you a scenario, and I want to know what you do in game 3. So let's go with the scenario where game 1 you lead, your opponent leads, you win the game, but it's not a blowout. It's close, and you know that there can be adjustments. It could have went either way. Game 2, you make whatever set adjustments that you thought would have been even a better win for game 2, but you end up losing somehow, right? How do you go into game 3? Are you leading what you led game 1? Are you leading your game 2 adjustments? Are you going to even bring out a completely different strategy? Like, how do you approach that game 3 in that specific order of win, loss, what do you do game 3?
So, just as a caveat, I wish I could say that there's like a blanket universal answer to this. But
Yeah, agreed.
the caveat obviously is that like it really depends on what happens in those games. So looking at it through that perspective, I think like, ceteris paribus, all things equal, there is an inclination to like resort to the game plan that you think is the most effective. Of those two games, you're probably going to lean towards the first one if you won, right? But there's going to be tons of little like kind of markers that are going to stand out, like why you lost each game or where you struggled in each game. And for example, I think that one of the best examples I have from me doing something like this was in game 3 in the finals against Joe. I led Flutter T-Tar, which typically wouldn't be the right way I would go about that matchup, but there was very specifically something that I wanted to do to kind of line up the end game that I was trying to create. And game 1 and 2, the bundle was really difficult for my Tusk, and I was taking too much damage into my Tyranitar. So I led Flutter Tyranitar, so that way I kind of forced Joe to have to pay attention to one of the threats on the board. Like both things would deal significant damage to bundle and make it much easier for my Tusk in the end game. Most of those games I wanted to have like a proactive response to Amoonguss and a way to get around Arcanine, but he wasn't bringing either of them. So when I kind of had a feel for how he was going to bring, like what 4 he was going to bring, I was like able to explore that option of Flutter and Tyranitar, because I didn't have to immediately worry about the Amoonguss. Like he could have let Amoonguss, but I didn't feel like he was going to. And I had contingencies, like I still had Talon in the back if I needed it. But if you led like Iron Bundle Amoonguss, that would have been complex because I would have had to probably switch Talon in to eat a spore and something. But it felt like the right play because like exactly what I was doing. Oh, I'm sorry, there's an echo.
Is it me?
Yeah, it's
Am
you.
I
Just
muted?
mute your mic.
I felt like it was the right decision because the bundle would have to switch out in order for it to like be safe, and like I would get a lot of momentum off of having Flutter and Tyranitar just like spamming Gleam and Rock Slide no matter what he switched into. So immediately off the rip, I was pressuring both the bundle and the Mimikyu, and was setting up my end game where like if I get Talon and Tusk in the end game, I'm like completely chilling. And like kind of a secondary thing that I induced his Terra for the Mimikyu. Like I baited him into going for the Terra and the Mimikyu, which made his King Gambit way worse in that matchup. And that ended up being like the deciding factor, regardless of all like the Will-O-Wisp misses, Hydro Pump misses. Once he burned that Terra on Mimikyu, like I felt like that was it. It was smooth sailing from that point.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah.
And
That makes sense. I mean, I guess one way you can say it, I guess for the listeners, is that I think what Justin's also saying is that it really is dynamic, and it comes down to what's going on in the moment. And I think that's something that's really important for everyone to take away. That it depends, and that's one of those skills that you develop over time and playing the game, that you'll get to figure out, how you should approach and how your opponent's playing, and how deep you are into the tournament. It's a really great answer. Thanks for that.
yeah, one thing going off of that too, it's like Joe burned his Terra on his Mimikyu, trying to get that Shadow Sneak KO onto your Flutter, and you just ate that shit. So that was like a huge turning point in that game when we were watching it on the way back from Charlotte, and we were just all like going crazy when that shit happened. But speaking of Joe, this isn't your first time playing Joe. If we go back, way back to Joe's humble beginnings, playing at Bob's PCs out in Babylon, New York. I don't know if you recall, but there was a PC in particular.
Yeah, that guy used to hack the shit out of us, bro. Let's call it for what it is.
Come on, bro. Like, I was trying to build up to it. This guy said, "Yo, he hacks the shit out of us," but it is true. I ain't gonna hold you. If we recall back in this, it was like 2017-ish, around that era. We all pulled up to a Bob's PC. We're playing, fucking around, and I pull this new guy, Joe, and I'm playing him. I get hacked out. I'm like, yo, what the fuck, man? I get hacked out. Like, what the hell's going on here? And then I think it was either you or Rayad that proceeded to play him next. Get hacked out too. We're like, yo, like this guy's crazy. Like he's going for some crazy hack shit. And then the third of us plays him again and also proceeds to get hacked out. And I think Justin, you end up having the run back with him in finals of that PC, where you also get hacked out. So I think when you said that, the whole universe was like conspiring, for you to bring down this wave
of fate.
There you go.
That was a
Valley
great
of Fate.
line. That was a great line. I love that, dude. We were watching that we were watching while we were driving back, and I was like losing my shit when you said wave of fate. Anyways, continue. Go ahead.
Banger of a line. Nah, 100% top 10 anime moments of 2023.
Write that down. Write that down.
But yeah, do you think Joe got a little bit of his just desserts for hacking us all out back in that PC back in the day? When you got a little lucky in the finals there.
Yeah, so I will say, like, there's a couple things about that finals that I misconstrued in my, like, winner's interview.
Mm-hmm.
The first thing is that I missed a Will-O-Wisp in game 1 that lost me the game.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize, like, I had to double Wisp his King Gambit. Same thing in game 2. I missed a Wisp into his King Gambit. So, like, there were a lot of things that were going in my favor for sure. Like, I dodged, like, 2 or 3 Hydros, but he hit a lot of Hydros too.
Mm-hmm.
And I missed, like, the most important Wisps that I needed to hit. So, I mean, Pokemon is obviously a game with tons of, variance. I think typically the better player wins. And to say that it was like fate coming down on him, no, I as much as that may have been a baller line to say in an interview before the finals, I didn't really mean it. Like, I was ready to just go out there and, play Pokemon, take things as they came to me. And I don't really consider Joe to be like a lucky player anymore, because I've seen him get like absolutely robbed on stream by like missing Will-O-Wisps or missing like play roughs. I think he missed like a play rough in San Diego to lose and end up not making top cut. He got really unlucky against James in top 4 of NAIC last year. So, I mean, we're all Pokemon players. If you play enough sets, you're going to be in those scenarios where things go your way, things go for your opponent, whatever, or it's completely messy on both sides. And I think the final set it looked ugly at some points, and like I was getting lucky, but it was much more under the surface that it was going back and forth. So yeah, I mean, I think we both played to the best of our ability in that matchup. I maybe towards the end of game 3 looked like I was joking because I was trying so hard to not throw the game to like a crit or like another Will-O-Wisp miss or something like that. And ultimately, again, I think that there was very key things that happened in each game where it was like, if I get the Wisp off in the right point, then my Tusk will be able to win. If he blows his Terra at this point, then I'll be able to win. In game 1, I preserved my bundle, so that way when he did Terra his King Gambit, I would have a way to do like 50% to it. And I just barely missed that KO because I missed that Wisp and didn't get enough chip. So back and forth again. Like, yes, did he get a little bit of reckoning in that final set? In some ways, for sure. But I still think he played like spectacularly, and I think I played pretty well. Like, I'm not upset about any of the turns really in that set at all. Sorry, any of the turns in that set at all. And it's a long season. We're gonna get these things. They're gonna go our way. They're gonna go against us. So. Yeah, I mean, the ultimate goal is winning Worlds. We'll see how it plays out when we get there.
Yeah, no, I think I remember like game 1 of that series, because you lost game 1, right, against Joe, and then I think it came down to like a Will-O-Wisp miss that you had in that game.
Yeah,
it was
I missed
something
the Wisp
crazy
to
that happened.
Gambit.
It was something crazy that happened, and then we were like, "There's no way this is about to happen again," because we remember like what happened last time, and like especially your finals interview where you're talking about like Joe like hacking. I know it was all in jest. It was just banter or whatever. Like the fact that it was kind of happening again, and you really bounced back well in games 2 and 3 to kind of take that set. But no, to your point about like the better player always winning, like, or most of the time winning, I guess. I think this series, like we're seeing like a lot of consistency from a lot of the top players, like new and old, right? Like we have like Carson, we have Trailer had like a good like series 1. We saw Aaron top 4 in Vancouver. Like Wolf has been on a crazy run the last few regionals. So we're seeing like a lot of old players just kind of have insane consistency, or just like players that are good now have insane consistency. So like, what do you chalk that up to? Like, what do you think is it? I know you had that tweet about the like the pros and cons about Terras. So if you want to go in depth a little bit about that and why you think that's such a consistent mechanic, like you can go ahead.
So Yeah, no, I'm glad that you brought this up. The consistency that we're seeing out of new and older players alike is very impressive. This has undoubtedly been my best season start ever, and I'm like very happy about it. But I do want to give like, so there's a couple of factors that I think make a big difference. Terrestrialization is probably the best mechanic Pokemon has ever given us. I was a big fan of Megas.
Other than Megas, I like Megas too.
I didn't like Z moves, and I never got to play with gems, but I know that a lot of people dislike gems. Some people thought it was fun. Dynamax was a little bit unbalanced in certain ways. I didn't mind it too much, but it was a completely different game, and it led to a lot more variance than it. The way that I put it is it accentuated the worst parts of Pokemon, where if you got that multi-turn sleep, it was worse because it was on your Dynamax Pokemon. Or if your Dynamax Pokemon got crit, like there goes your full win condition. It was much harder to make comebacks when bad things happened in a Dynamax format. But Terrestrialization is really, really beautiful, in my opinion. Like I could probably talk about it for an hour. There's a lot of elements that make it such a good mechanic. I think the first and foremost is that it's a great defensive mechanic and it's very flexible. I love that they carried over the anything can do it at any point thing that they had with Dynamax, rather than it being like a specific Z move on a Pokemon that you have to give an item up for, or it being like a Mega Stone evolution that's like, again, it's one Pokemon. Because it can be like a contingency plan, it really raises the skill ceiling. So when are you going to Terra is a big thing. Like, are you going to Terra offensively for damage that you need? Are you going to Terra defensively for a like big swing turn and momentum? If you choose not to Terra early, are you then affording yourself the option to make a more flexible game plan with something else in the end game? Are you going to be able to have like a great mid game Terra that like again completely turns things on its head? And I think that that's kind of the thing that has really been contributing to players that are performing consistently is how they manage the usage of their Terra. If they're going to just run and gun with it, like go for like an immediate like Tailwind and then Tusk, Terra, Ground, Earthquake, there will be like you can build game plans around that. It just changes so much. And then on the opposite side of that coin, your opponent has access to Terra. So how are you mind gaming them to burn their Terra? How are you taking away their, like, how are you mitigating the damage of their Terra options or getting rid of tools that you don't want to deal with, like an Amoonguss? Like a big thing is like Amoonguss having the option to just like completely remove all the weaknesses that it's faced with on the board is huge. That can be like a giant like turn swing where they Terra Water and then they get a Spore off. I think Terra is a really good mechanic. The Terra Blast not being like base 100 power was huge. I said from the beginning, I was like, if this has 80 base power, it'll be healthy. And that's contributing a lot to the consistency. But I think that because the game is very, like, it's in a healthy place, like there's not as many weird, like, you don't have to deal with like indie, like Gmax Had a Rain, right? In series 2 of VGC 2020. You don't have to deal with like Gmax Butterfree. There's no Thunderous, like spamming Thunder Wave. Grimmsnarl's at like an all-time low usage since it's been released. So a lot of the high variance Pokemon that would make things less consistent are not around anymore, barring, you know, the introduction of Fissure Ting-Lu, and I'm sure we'll get to that at some point. And again, I think that like a lot of the players that you're seeing do well, I think a good example is Wolf. Wolf has been on a tear this season, and it's partially because he's that type of player where when you introduce a way to raise the skill ceiling, he will figure out how to maximize what his skill is, like how he reaches that skill ceiling. And he has repeatedly during rounds of tournaments been like, I played out of my mind, or like I just played like the craziest set. And I've said it in tweets and stuff like that, where I feel like this is some of the best Pokemon I've ever got to experience, because the games are so organic. There's so many things that can happen. Like things are coming to you like so quickly, unless you're playing like Indeedee Armarouge or Dondozo, which I actually feel like are archetypes that reduce the flexibility that you can have with a more organic team. Like just having like an Amoonguss that can Terra, or like an Arcanine Amoonguss Palafin Core. There's so many things that I like. It really affords balance, a lot more flexibility, which I like, and it takes something like a hyper offense Tusk team like mine and lets me build it in such a creative way. Like I have a Goth mode, I have Tyranitar, which is like kind of the only pivot on that team, but still acts as like a damaging Pokemon. And it wouldn't be able to function on my team without the ability to Terra Flying, because it would really struggle into Iron Hands without that mix-up of being able to turn into a Terra Flying Mon, or to remove its weaknesses into Fluttermane and Iron Bundle. So I feel like it's just a great mechanic that really raises the skill ceiling in the builder, in tournament play, and between two high-level players as well.
Yeah, I definitely see, the flexibility with Terras has definitely been able to allow players to express, how they want to approach the game in many different ways. Like you said, offensively, defensively, even for utility, being able to Terra Ghost your Talonflame just so you could dodge your extreme speed, so you could get your Gale Wings Tailwind off, might come in clutch here and there. There's so many opportunities in this game where Terra has proven to be such a cool expression of player skill in these last couple months of playing VGC in the 2023 circuit.
One thing I want to say too is that there's, I think it was Nick Navarre, that said that terrestrialization is kind of saving these formats. They would be bad otherwise. And I don't really evaluate formats and like what they would be like without the mechanic that's in them. But when I try to, walk a mile in his shoes on that perspective, there's a lot of things that would be really bad about this format without terrestrialization. There's not a lot of ground resists, so having access to Terra Flying is a big thing that like makes it a lot more balanced. Fluttermane would probably have a harder time dropping speed, because you would almost always be in a situation where you have to Shadow Ball into another Flutter. You can't take away that defensive weakness. And that's a big thing. I think that like Fluttermane is much more balanced in the Terra format, because it can't just spam damage into stuff that it knows nothing resists Fluttermane on Ghost and Fairy. There's no like combination that really does that. When again, like the Fluttermane versus Fluttermane, we've been able to get much more creative because we have access to this mechanic. And I'll give credit to Nails on actually like pinpointing that is a godsend. We are able to play much higher levels of Pokemon because we have the ability to defensively remove weaknesses and build around these things.
Yeah, no, I feel like with Terra types, like obviously typing is a big deal in Pokemon, but the defensive and offensive options that you have with any Pokemon that you have kind of adds so much more layers to just competitive Pokemon in general, because like you can have any matchup, and with open team sheet as well, like it literally changes the entire game, because exactly where your opponent's Terras are, where your Terras are, they're reading it, you're reading theirs. So it plays like a completely different mind game that we've never really had a chance to experience before in VGC play, where you kind of have to figure, okay, are we getting a defensive Terra? Like you have to keep everything in the back of your mind essentially, and with that it creates like another level of just play that only like the highest elitist player can really reach. And it's like anything that adds a skill gap, I think Terras do in fact add a skill gap. Like there might, like Gigantamax maybe didn't add a skill. I didn't play that format very much, but like I know like a lot of people are annoyed with Gigantamax that sort of meta game. I think Megas did add a skill gap, but it was pretty linear, because like you knew kind of like the mons that would Mega, but it's like with you not knowing what mon could Terra, or what, it kind of comes down to matchups and realizing like, okay, so they have to kind of Terra this mon in order to win this game or make this matchup favorable in their favor. But you kind of have to figure that out, right? It's not as clear as Megas were. So I think Terra's definitely added, especially with the option of being offensive or defensive. You have a lot of layers when it comes to just mind games.
And let me touch on the open team sheet thing too, because I kind of glossed over that. I was just looking at it through the lens of how terrestrialization is helping us. Open team sheet is the best thing to happen to VGC, like bar none. I know that there are people that like really cry about like, oh, we're removing creativity, and like people are solving matchups before they're even happening. Good. I think that open team sheet is like such a godsend. That's one of the biggest things for the consistency from people that have been playing for a long time. And while it does benefit the people that have a lot of experience and are capable of coming up with those game plans very flexibly and understanding all the tools that their opponent has, I think we're seeing the benefits trickle down to newer players as well. We've had 2 brand new people win the first ever tournaments that they went to. Justin Tang just went 2 for 3 on regional wins, which is insane, mind
That's
you.
insane, dude. I don't know what the fuck that was.
Yeah, an open team sheet it's a big thing from an accessibility standpoint. Like, one of the hardest one of the gaps in competitive Pokemon, I think that was really like icing people out a lot, while it did hurt experienced players, was like people just having access to bluffs in their teams. Like, think about how annoying Armarouge and Indeedee would be if you didn't have the information
My
right
Pokemon
in front of you.
And shit.
Yeah, and we're seeing it both in the players that are performing consistently, but also the team archetypes that are performing consistently. And like the Church of Tusk that I talk about all the time, my team building group that we committed to this team for 3 straight regionals, we had like the top 3 of us like all got CP and made day 2, top 32, top 16, top 8, a regional win over and over and over, because we were able to tool our teams to all the things that we would have to expect on the team sheet, not just the possibilities that the opponent can run. I don't think I would be able to run the sets that I have on my team if the Indie Armarouge player could Terra Dark instead of Terra Grass, or go for like an Aura Sphere into my Tyranitar. Knowing that they don't have these options is a big factor in how consistent teams like continue to do well.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I think we definitely had spoken about OTS before on the podcast, and it's definitely a consensus here as well that we all agree that OTS really is a great thing for the game. It helps iron out so much inconsistencies, and I feel like it also levels the playing field. And what I mean by this is, there's like at an event or something. Let's say, you play a team that's really out there and no one expects it, right? But you're wearing a red hat, and then you beat someone and they were like, what the heck? Like, that guy is really running some some outlandish team. And then he just tells the next person. The next person's gonna be like, hey, that's the red hat guy. He's running that. With OTS, there's no more of that. Someone might have an information on your team and beat you because you were trying to run a gimmick or something out there, and now everyone now they have the jump on you and you thought you had the jump on them. It completely eliminates that. I think that's a really good thing for the game, because it just makes it kind of goes back onto not exactly what you were saying, but it comes down to the player, right? It's a player v player game at that point. The better player
100%.
is most likely gonna win. It's not gonna be the gimmick or the the lack of knowledge or the surprise factor. And another thing, I'm not sure a lot of the newer audience knows, back in the day, you played around not actually having an OTS. So in a best of 3, there were things that you would specifically not do on purpose just to like preserve information in later games. And OTS really helped, I think, just elevate the playing field for everyone. And I think that's the best thing that happened to VGC OTS this format. And terrestrialization is really great as well.
Yeah, and I think, like, just to give a couple of examples, because I think I stressed it being like an Indeedee Armarouge thing, but Dondozo's Terra would be so much more difficult to manage if you didn't know what it was or what moves it had. Protecting in front of an Iron Bundle and like not knowing that they have Encore would be really difficult. Like, you'd probably have to play into Iron Bundle like they never have Encore until you found out. The choice specs item on Fluttermane, like what would the damage output be? Is there, there's so many examples of this type of thing, like Snarl on Arcanine or Extreme Speed.
I think Terra's too, without OTS, would be really bad.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I think it really helps from an accessibility standpoint. Like, anybody that is just getting into Pokemon, that has like at least a core understanding of the fundamentals, like what Pokemon to bring, how to like build a decent team, going to a tournament, not having to account for all of those factors, not over like information crashing in your head. I call it bandwidth crashing. Makes your turns much easier to play out, like your game plan's easier to formulate. It's been a much better game in my opinion, and I think that pretty much everybody is benefiting from it, even if it is maybe hurting some of the creativity.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree. While some people here and there might be complaining like, oh, like I can't cheese people with my flip turn bundle, I think overall it does a lot for the players. Like, we're getting more information than we ever had in VGC. VGC Paste and VGC Data, all these Twitter accounts that had have all this information available to us. Like, we see the top 128 teams at a regional. Like, prior to this generation, we never saw shit like that. You're lucky to get the top 16 teams a week later after an event. But now, like, we have so fast information, all due to OTS. And yeah, and tears I also think is a great mechanic. But one other thing, like, I think the combination of the two has drawn in a lot of older players, just because the game doesn't feel like as variable. And I think a lot of that fundamental knowledge that you get, like just playing Pokemon, is useful in a game state where it really just comes down to when do you use your tools and how do you use them, to win the battles. That's one thing I think with Dynamax. It's like, if I led Reggie Alecki and I just D-max my Alecki turn 1 and started going for, max airstreams, got +3, I just ran through my opponent, and there's no like counterplay to that sometimes. Or like same with Charizard with G-max Wildfire. Like, last gen, it felt like games, there weren't many ways to get back into games, whereas like now there's a lot of back and forth in Pokemon. And even when you do get quote unquote hacked out, there are ways that are presented in the game that you could kind of bounce back and come back into the game. One thing though I wanted to touch on is player expression with OTS. There's one thing I noticed is people are building their mons very uniquely in ways that you don't usually expect. Like yourself, you ran a very bulky Flutter to win Charlotte, and other players are running, depending on what boost you get with your booster energy, some Roaring Moons are running speed boost, some are running attack boost. So I still think there is some ways you could kind of trick your opponent just based on what they're seeing on OTS, and they have to kind of pay attention to the fine details on how you're expressing your team. But yeah, do you guys wanna...
on the topic of OTS too, like obviously now like notes kind of becomes like it becomes a little different than a function in the past, because in the past you would be like taking notes of like what the moves were, like what they, I mean obviously now you could still like write down like what they led, but like Justin, I noticed that you're a big like note taker, right? Like every single round you're writing down a lot of things, like regardless of what's going on in the match. So I just kind of want to just touch on like, what do you think is very significant to note whenever you're writing in your notebook, or like is it leads, or is it like kind of like turn by turn, like maybe sleep turns? Like what do you think is important to really note?
So yeah, I think in the past, like I put a lot more emphasis on note taking than I do now. Having access to team sheets really nice. You don't have to like write down every single move and every item and all that stuff. You can pretty easily just glance at like the outliers. What I do stress now when I take notes, and I've experimented with not taking notes. I stopped taking notes after like round 4 of Knoxville. But Charlotte, I'm pretty sure I was very good about my note taking. When you're playing a best of 3 set against somebody that you don't like have experience or practice playing against, there's a couple things that I stress in the note taking section. The first is when they Terra and what they Terra. I think like emphasizing whether it's an early or if they like to conserve it Terra, that's a big thing, and what they like to Terra, and kind of understanding why. You don't have to write down the why. Like a lot of the times if I write down, I'll just do like a T next to the Mon's name that they bring, and then I'll just circle it in the game that I'm in. Like usually I'll just do the 6. Sometimes I'll do the items and the Terra types. I'll really only write down the ones that stand out to me if it's like a unique Terra or a unique item. If it's like Covert Cloak, I'll write down don't fake out, which is like just a silly thing, but it really does come into play. But yeah, I'll write down when they Terra, what they Terra, and then I'll write down like specific damage calcs. So like if something is more physically bulky, like if I expected something to KO, and then speed tiers is a big one. Like if their Fluttermane is faster than mine, I know like, all right, it's probably a little bit frailer. If the Iron Bundle is going to underspeed mine and I'm not max speed, then I know that they're not max speed either. Tyranitar was a big one for me. Like Tyranitar, I sped crept really hard to outspeed a lot of Dragonite. And knowing that it outsped Dragonites was really good. But even still, sometimes like those notes can bite you. I played Jody in round 3 or 4 of day 2, and his Dragonite and my Tyranitar were speed tying, but I didn't know that until it came up. Like my Tyranitar outsped, and I immediately thought like, oh, mine's faster. It's supposed to be faster. And then the next time that it came up, his outsped mine, and I was like, oh, all right, it was a speed tie.
Yeah, no, I think those those notes about just like, just when someone terras or, just speed ties, things like that. Because in a best of 3 set, like sometimes like it's understated, but like people can like, you can just sometimes get information like jumbled between games 1, 2, 3. Like it's a lot of information to take in. So like just the fact that you have it on paper, you can glance at it, and you kind of, because sometimes like I'll be in like in a game 3 and like thinking in team preview maybe, and I'm like, what did they lead game 1? Would they lead game 2? Like sometimes like you can just get it all like mixed up. So it's very important to note
the information. You can confuse yourself. It's happened to me plenty, especially like in later rounds of tournaments. I will say that there's another level to it too on the note-taking side, but this really only applies to day 1. So in day 2, your opponent's team sheets are all available to everybody. It's on Arcanine, but in day 1 they're not. So taking notes is good for scouting, for people that you're working with, and I think that really matters a lot. So I don't know what the rules are around taking pictures of people's team sheets. I've not done that yet because I would just assume that that's against the rules, or I don't want to like my opponent to get like annoyed by me doing that, so I haven't done it. I would love to know if that's actually okay to do and we have the right to do that, just because like if I see your team sheet, I could write down everything during the course of the match, but that takes a lot of effort. But yeah, I think that it's really important for scouting, like giving people like all the information that you possibly can if they do happen to run into them. And that played a huge role for me in Charlotte, because I played like 4 or 5 people that somebody like in my network had played and had good notes on like exactly what they were using, so I could come up with a game plan like 2 or 3 minutes before we sat down.
Do you give your opponent your team sheet like when team preview starts, or like right when you sit down?
It depends on everybody. Like I'll be very quick to, all right, hold on, it varies. If I'm playing somebody like Nathan Ortiz, like Cortex, who loves to run like the most wild teams.
Weird shit. I played him at Orlando, bro. He ran a mirror to my Dondozo team.
I'm taking that team sheet ASAP. The second he can, like, the fastest humanly possible, I'm asking him as soon as he sits down, and he waits. He knows. He's like, we'll wait until it starts over.
John Who, you're taking that
oh
shit
my
ASAP,
goodness. Bro. I'm trying to take it out of his backpack before he notices, if possible. That's a big thing. I think like if you know that you're playing against somebody that like if you already know their team, like just keep your team sheet so that way they have to think about it. But I mean, that's like another like skill element to it too, where how quickly do you give your opponent the team sheet? How much time do they need to solve the matchup? And typically I'm like a pretty quick team sheet giver. But again, if I'm playing one of these people that I know like to run wild stuff, like I know they're not giving me that team sheet until we're locked into team preview.
Nah, I felt that at the event. So this was my first event in a while, and this is also obviously my first OTS event. I didn't know what to do actually when it came to when am I supposed to give my opponents my team sheet. So I just defaulted to if they tried even reaching over the table or anything, or suggesting that I give them my team sheet before team preview, I just said, hey, I'll give it to you when the team preview comes up, because I just wanted to be consistent with everyone. I mean, I didn't really like have much expectation from my opponent, like whether they were going to be good or they're not going to be good or whatever. I just tried to treat them all the same, and I knew myself as a player is that I can probably figure it out, unless it's some really wacky stuff. I could probably figure it out within the time limit, because I know myself as a player and I know my team very well. So it didn't really negatively impact me as much. So I just wanted to go with that approach. So that's how I handle it. But speaking of funny things, I think the weirdest team I played, and I know this is kind of we're trying to move on here, but the weirdest team I did play was my round 2 opponent. Shout out to you, Zion Moore. He was running Lily Cole with like Flutter, like I think Flutter or Record, the dancing bird. He was running like a choice band, like the starter, the one with Moxie, the water one. Like his team was so out there, and I was like, bro, how the heck did I figure this matchup? I figure it out in like, the 30-second team preview and just put it out there. But it ended up working out. We played. I won both of the games and it felt good. But geez, like, yeah, I don't know, man. Just going with the default of, hey, I'm gonna give it to you when the team starts. It just felt like the most equal because I knew my own capabilities, and it ended up working out for me.
Yeah, I think generally like it's fair to wait until team preview. But again, there will be scenarios where you want it as fast as possible. I think that typically like it'll favor the better player to get it sooner than later. Because the more time that they have to formulate a game plan, the better. Like literally 10 extra seconds to look over and like adjust your game plan in team preview is a big deal. If they have like Terra flying on Iron Hands, for example, that's something that like they might completely change how you're going to play that matchup, how you want to induce their Terra. Maybe they're not going to opt to Terra something that wouldn't do something like that. So yeah, again, I think that's a skill I'm still working on developing when I want to try and get the team sheet. But again, you do always have to be prepared for they're not giving it to you until team preview.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, speaking on teams though, one thing I did want to touch on was, Justin, you started the Church of Tusk very early into Series 2. What made you lean into Tusk so early on? I remember I was playing in a Nino Bros tournament. This was like back in January, a couple weeks after San Diego. I saw you cooked up this fire team. You and Yotam were both in cut with me at this tour, and I saw both you guys had the same six. I was like, yo, what the hell are these guys cooking? So what led you towards our Lord and Savior Tusk, and what made you decide to stick with that mon throughout the format?
So I initially, like from the day that Series 2 got announced, was like, all right, Talon Tusk, this is where I'm going to start. And I used a bunch of different sets that didn't work for me. I tried Focus Sash at the start, I tried Assault Vest, and it took until I started like really like playing tournaments, like online tournaments, was where I really figured out which version of it that I liked, to start working around with the core that I thought could win a regional would be. And there was one Nino tour I think that happened, it may have been a Beanie Brawl, but one of the top 8 teams was Talon, T-Tar, Tusk, Sylveon, and the T-Tar was really interesting to me. I didn't understand why there was a T-Tar. I didn't know what the like thought process behind that was, but the Sylveon made a lot of sense to me. And what really stood out to me was the Protosynthesis Booster Energy Tusk. And I thought about it and I was like, oh, you run Protosynthesis for the attack boost. That's pretty smart. And that's how I eventually landed on Life Orb. Where the team kind of started taking shape was I took that 6 that I had found, and I didn't like there was like an Amoonguss pretty much over what would be like Gothitelle and Fluttermane. I think there was an Iron Bundle still. I don't remember exactly what the 6 mon. It might have been Arcanine or something. But the idea was Talon Tusk is great. Iron Bundle is actually just kind of like the most no-brainer partner for Tusk. You get speed control with Icy Wind. And that version of the team had a Life Orb on bundle, which I loved because it was crazy damage, and it was Life Orb Terra Ice, so you could like one-shot Amoonguss, which was really good. But experimenting with that team kind of showed me that Talon Tusk is good, but not as like a lead. I would very often end up leading like Talon Sylveon. And Sylveon was sick because it had such good special defense, so it did well into Fluttermane and bundle, and kind of akin to Xerneas Groudon in 2016, ground fairy coverage is broken. So most of my game plans revolved around leading Talonflames and Sylveon with Tusk bundle in the back, and eventually that turned into a Fluttermane, particularly because I was worried about Perish, but mostly because of the team input from Tolar Web. In practice in those tournaments, I understood why Tyranitar was good. Like, anything that Tusk isn't hitting, Tyranitar can hit, and it can kind of act as like a secondary, like physical offensive Pokemon. It's great into like Dragonite, which would give Tusk problems. It's got great special defense and is just a really, really fat Pokemon, so it's really good. Tusk covers a lot of stuff that Tyranitar would be weak to, in stuff like Iron Hands, and like ground, again, like just there's not a lot of good ground resistance in this format, so people are forced to burn their Terra Flying if they have it, or if they have a Dragonite, like you have that Tyranitar, you have that Iron Bundle. And Fluttermane being the faster version of Sylveon, we just ended up going really fat, really strong. I felt like the team kind of took shape on its own. The Gothitelle was initially a tool specifically to help against Palafin, because my team just gets like 1v6 when you use Palafin against me, and we didn't have defensive Terras to really beat it. Iron Bundle is a little bit too frail to be like a consistent Palafin check, and very often you're running into Palafin Amoonguss. So Palafin just eats Talonflame even if you have safety goggles. So Gothitelle was the most proactive way to beat Palafin in the early game. Like, they can't lead it. A lot of people started dropping Flip Turn because Wolf won without it, and a lot of people realized, like, oh, you need Protect, you might need Haze for Dozo, and then you really only have to run Jet Punch and Wave Crash. So Gothitelle was a really good way to mitigate early game Palafin, and it was kind of designed initially to beat something like Gavin's Rain team that he won OCIC with.
Mm-hmm.
It became more difficult to use Gothitelle into Palafin teams because the adaptation of Specs Flutter was added to Palabalance teams. I think that was like a Snow originally, like a Japanese player Snow team that like put Specs Fluttermane with Palafin. And I actually got rolled by Luca Paz in Knoxville with a Flutter Palafin lead, where the Flutter was just faster than my Flutter. Their Palafin didn't need to worry about like the early game. It would just like Terra right away. And that team was really difficult for me to get around before I like developed the matchup into it. So Gothitelle was there to do that. Team is pretty simple. Like, I like how simple it is, where you just lead Talonflutter and then you end up going to like a Tusk bundle endgame. That's pretty much the idea behind like 90% of the matchups that you're playing. And then all the other options are just for flexibility. Tyranitar is for like Indeedee Armarouge, Gothitelle for Palafin, Gothitelle for other Trick Room teams. Like, it works pretty functionally well to support that core.
That makes a lot of sense. Seeing how your team evolved over time. I get the whole switch from Sylveon into Flutter, and now the Ceruledge Edge, I guess, was the original slot where Gothitelle was. And honestly, I think for this team, Gothitelle was a great fit. But speaking of evolving your teams, one thing we're noticing going into Regulation C is a lot of players are taking concepts from Series 2 Regulation B and kind of evolving it and incorporating these new Ruin Pokemon, or adapting them in ways that they can work in a metagame that centralizes around these Ruin Pokemon. I mean, we saw that with Joe's team, which was very similar to the team you played in the finals. He ends up making it to the finals at Fort Wayne against Justin Tang. So how do you feel about that approach to team building, where players are iterating on their teams just to improve as the meta develops and as these rule sets are kind of changing slightly? Do you think that's a good approach to take?
Yeah, absolutely. There's a couple things with like where it depends on the format and when the rotation of the format will be. The thing that was interesting about like the VGC 2022, I guess it was Series 12 or whatever, Series 13 of Dynamax, was we got the format for the whole year, and you saw a lot of those players pretty much run like almost the identical team that they were running all year, with just different tweaks to adapt to the metagame. That type of strategy typically works when you have like really, really strong Pokemon that you can build around that just like cover most matchups, like the restricted cores, and like Regieleki or Urshifu or whatever it is, or like Dynamax Thundurus. In this format, there's kind of, again, like a lot of stuff that like works well together, like Mouseape and Indeedee Armarouge and Dondozo Tatsugiri. And as we moved into Series 2, like the Fluttermane, Palafin, Amoonguss, Arcanine core was really, really powerful. Wolf won the first regional with it. Justin Tang won the second regional with it. And then I think even like, I don't know if Vancouver was the Lilycole stuff, but Justin Tang just won another regional again with those four Pokemon. And I think part of that is comfort. Comfort is a huge element in how you play Pokemon because you're doing a lot of the reps on ladder and in your sets and in tournaments. Like the fact that I was able to use the same team at 3 regionals was a blessing for me. I tried to build other stuff and I tried to explore with other ideas, but the majority of the time it wasn't that I wasn't able to build something else that would work. It was that I never felt like I found something that was stronger than that original 6. And part of it was comfort. Like I like the fact that I can always rely on that endgame bundle Tusk. Like I feel like I can maneuver against almost anything with that core 4. And then the 2 supporting mons, like I tried to change them. I wanted to test for Rigorath or Indeedee over Gothitelle. I tried doing King Gambit over Tyranitar, and you give and you get. Like King Gambit's much better into Arcanine, but it's way worse into Indeedee Armarouge. And then if I have Indeedee over Gothitelle, like I suffer in a lot of matchups that I might be bringing Gothitelle Fluttermane to. It's not as flexible as Gothitelle was. Screens teams is a big thing. Like Gothitelle's so good into screens teams. You can just leave the Grimmsnarl on the field and just like start picking off the things that are next to it. And going into Regulation C, it's a little bit weird because I feel like most of the format rotations that we've had, we've added a lot of tools. We got 20 Pokemon in the Paradoxes when we switched from Series 1 to Regulation B, or Regulation A to Regulation B. They're kind of retconning the names of those. But going into Regulation C, we're only adding 4 Pokemon. And granted, those 4 Pokemon enable a bunch of other things, like Dragonite becomes much better in a metagame where Chi and Pao exists. Ting Lu is able to enable like balance cores much better. Wo-Chien makes Glamora a lot better when you pair them together. But there's not really too much that changes in the overall landscape of the metagame. Like Fluttermane is still probably the best Pokemon. Iron Bundle is still probably the best at its role. Talonflame still works exactly the same. So while yes, I think there will be new things that people can explore and build around, I still think a lot of the teams that did well in Series 2 are just as strong. Like I might even end up rolling to EUIC with the same 6 that I brought to Charlotte, not because I don't have anything else, but because I still think I can just adapt it to the things that we're facing. And a lot of the Ruin Mons still don't do well into Tusk. They're all dark types, and they're not exactly hitting you too hard if you have speed control. So, yeah, I mean, I really emphasize that players stick to what they're comfortable with, and there's always room to innovate. There's always room to tweak and optimize. But, yeah, I mean, Regulation C is not going to be that much different from Regulation B or Series 2, because it's much easier, I think, to just stick to the stuff that's already existing and strong. There's very few exceptions to the types of archetypes that are going to work right out of the gate.
Right. Yeah, that totally makes sense. And continuing on this, what already is working, is gonna just be iterated on and refined. It's funny. I was looking at Tang. Shout out to Tang Gang, Justin Tang's team from today.
Tang Gang.
Tang Gang, let's get it. The nicknames he has for his Pokemon, I'm not sure this is accurate. This is from Cut Explorer. And you might be able to attest to that, but the nicknames for his Pokemon are hilarious. So his Dragapult is D-Knight, which is hilarious, right? Pokemon that already existed in the format. Amoonguss, which he's already using, nicknamed Wo-Chien, that's hilarious. His Arcanine is Chi-Yu. Palafin is Dozo. His Fluttermane, Mimi, right? That's probably Mimikyu. And then his Champao is Bundle. Like if you look at his team and the nicknames, they're all Pokemon that are already relevant in some way, and it's just a mix and match of the 2 formats, and exactly what you said is I think it's holding true. And this Fort Wayne Regional definitely shows that the teams that are going to be on top aren't going to be super different from what we're already seeing. I mean, mostly in fact, because there's only 4 Pokemon, only 4 things got added to the format. But then again, the things that are already working, and Fluttermane is probably the best Pokemon in the format, and not even probably, just straight up is.
Dragapult's a regional champion now, bro.
Dragapult is a regional champion, but the thing is, like, these Pokemon that have been doing good will continue to be doing really great, and I think that's what we can look out to in Reg C. But yeah, go ahead and let us know about the Tang Gang a little bit, my guy. I saw you tweeted something today. What did you tweet?
Yo, he had the Glizzy Diffra.
Oh my gosh.
Yesterday
Did
he had some
you see his
glizzies.
photo? He bit like
Glizzies?
directly into the bread and didn't even get any dough.
Yo, I saw that. I peeped that. I peeped
Completely missed.
that. Man's went during the 2-hour lunch break to get glizzies, bro, and he came back.
I'm sure a 2-hour lunch break. What the fuck was that?
They were making up
Oh,
for the
don't get
fact
me
that we didn't
started.
get any in Charlotte, bro.
We didn't get one.
Not having a lunch break in Charlotte was a big factor.
That shit
I
was
think, in
clutch,
you being
bro.
able to
I
lock
liked it.
in.
'Cause,
That's what I'm
there's at
saying.
least one set where you have like 40 minutes in between rounds. It's like you can go get lunch. Like it's fine. You don't
Nah,
need,
things
a
too, it's
designated
like-
lunch break.
Sometimes too, you get that lunch break, bro. You come back, you feeling down bad, bro. You're tired as fuck.
Lethargic, bro.
Exactly. You know, you go, you play your next set, you shit the sheets. You know,
Always.
just
Every
because.
fucking time. Happens
Just
every
because
time.
you
I
know,
remember.
like you're not your head's not in the game, bro. You just enjoyed some tacos or some Mickey D's or whatever, and you're not feeling it. So I love the fact that we didn't have a lunch break, and I think that should be the standard going forward. TPCI, if you're listening, no lunch breaks.
Yo,
Yes,
shout out to Judy.
please.
My guy took a shower, bro, during the lunch break.
Yeah, I
Shout
He
out
pulled
to
the
that
Russell
guy, bro.
Wilson, bro.
Oh, it
Keeping
wasn't.
it fresh.
Oh, for the Muslim folks, bro, that 2-hour lunch break must have been hell, bro. Like they couldn't have done anything.
That's facts,
Yo,
bro.
come
They-
on,
I mean,
Crazy, son.
they're fasting, bro. He's spitting, bro.
2-hour lunch break during Ramadan?
what?
Nah, that's crazy.
For what?
Yo, shout out to
Yo,
my Islamic
inshallah,
brothers.
inshallah, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Bro, do you know that reference though? That Russell Wilson against the Broncos, Russell Wilson took a shower during the halftime.
Hmm.
Ain't no way,
Is
bro.
that what you-
Yeah, I'm
Muslim,
pretty
right?
sure he did against the Broncos.
Hmm.
Yo, wait,
Yo, I
I
mean,
know
what-
it was
that's one way
2014
to
and
stay in the game, bro. Just keep
it
it
is.
fresh.
It is. Keep fresh. Keep fresh. Zip lock.
Stay alert, bro. Hey, not many people are gonna get that reference, bro.
Yo, my bad. That's a deep cut right there.
The shower
Yo,
is definitely a good way to
But
stay-
since
stay
you guys brought up
stay
Jody,
alive.
one thing I wanna bring up, yo, Justin, when it comes to drip in the Pokemon scene, who are some of the drippiest players out in the scene right now, in your opinion?
Jody is easily number one.
Mhm. I could get behind that one for sure.
I'm trying to think of who else. I think Luca has pretty good sense of fashion.
Mhm.
Luca
Luka
Paz.
Paz? Yeah,
My
yeah.
boy,
Yeah, always
Tyson
keeps her.
Hughes, he was dripped out on stream today.
Who?
I know. Can I
Tyson
call
Hughes?
somebody out for having anti-drip? Or
Mm.
no, that's too mean.
Yeah.
Nah,
This
do
is
it,
a safe
do
space. This
it,
is a
do
safe
it.
space. This is a
It's a
safe
safe
space. Go
space.
ahead.
Right, safe space. I think we need to not try so hard
Mhm.
at regionals. Like you don't want to put on a costume. Like I know that there was somebody that showed up
Oh,
as like
the
the
Mando?
Mandalorian.
Yeah, bro. One of our boys, our boy Sean. Shout out Sean if you're listening.
Oh, Nathan Ortiz too. Definitely got drip. Always shows
Mm.
up fresh.
With
Yeah,
the
I'm taking a
Ratatouille-
slight
with the
offense that Justin
Ratatouille,
didn't even shout out my
drip, bro.
bucket hat as Charlotte, bro.
Come on,
Ah.
bro.
Oh, your bucket hat was looking great.
Oh,
I'm sorry, I forgot to mention that.
I'm saying, Justin, you be
Alright.
looking good at these events too. Like,
How's
no kizzy,
bro? I
bro.
was gonna shout him out too.
That's what I'm saying. bro.
Justin's always drippy, bro.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I went to H&M and I was like, how do I look like a 21-year-old again?
Mhm.
Mm.
Man's
Still
ain't
got
trying to
drip,
look.
bro. Still got drip.
Man's ain't trying to look like the rest of these gamers. You know, he's still trying to pull some poon afterwards. Oh, actually, no, he got a girl, so he don't gotta pull. But you still gotta be drippy. You still gotta be drippy. That's how you keep the girl.
Exactly.
Yeah, I did want to go in on the one person I think tries a little too hard for some
Mhm.
events, but again, I'm
Go in,
too,
my boy. Go
I'm
in,
too
my boy.
nice,
Go in.
man. I can't.
Ah,
I just
come on,
I,
Yeah, dude.
I have to
Ah,
generalize.
Safe space.
I have to generalize.
I don't know.
man.
I
You
saw
have to-
some motherfuckers on the stream, bro. They were wearing like a dress shirt and a mismatched tie. Like, come on, bro.
Yo,
I'm just
That's
saying, like, I see you try to be professional, but you know, don't wear double prints, bro. Like, what's good with you?
that was
It's
It
hard,
is-
man. Fashion is hard, especially I think as a guy, because we don't really learn about it until later in life.
True.
So, like
Mhm.
fashion isn't like a big emphasis until we're older.
I respect people for
Whereas
trying,
like you
bro.
kind
I
of get
respect people
like
for trying.
Yeah,
a lot
I
of
think it's
women would have the
experimentation.
opposite experience where they get ingrained into like fashion sense when they're younger. It's like a big
Mm.
point of emphasis for them.
Got you.
Nah, but-
yo, I'm not gonna name. I'm gonna go on the Justin. I'm gonna go on the Justin boat here and save my PR a little bit.
Not name,
Yo,
not name
one of my opponents, bro. He was hilarious at Charlotte. He was like, all right, he was like, yo, I was like, yo, how's your event been going? He's like, good. I've been just beating up sweaty gamers, bro. I was like, ain't no way, bro. Like, yo, he made me laugh so much because I know he wasn't being like trying to be malicious, but it was hilarious because the way he said it in such a straight face that it made it so funny. And then he beat me, and I guess I was one of those sweaty gamers.
He added you to the list, bro. Damn.
100%.
Took
All I'm
this
gonna say
man's
is my
soul.
boy. Forget the drip for a second, bro. My boy Silverbroom, bro. What do you go XO and on day one at Charlotte, bro? That motherfucker, He got gains, bro.
Gains,
Like,
bro. Oh my God.
shredded,
Eric, bro.
I walked by
Sheesh.
like at the top tables and I was like, yo, bro, his arms are fucking huge. Holy
Yeah.
fucking shit.
Bro,
Shout out to
to
Silverbroom.
what is it, Abdullah? Abdullah's his name, right? Or not? No, that's Septa.
No, this was
Tempra, sorry.
Eric Stewart. Eric Stewart, I think.
Oh yeah, Eric Stewart.
Yeah.
Dude, let me tell you something. I would not step into a ring with that guy.
Hell
I'm not
nah,
going
bro.
into that.
Hell no, bro.
I value my own life. He would
That's what I'm saying,
break
bro.
me.
Yo, but
Bro,
that
did
that
you-
guy starts doing some personal training, bro. I'm signing up for his shit, bro. Fuck,
100%.
fuck the
Oh,
coaching.
easily.
Fuck the
Please.
coaching, bro. I want
Get me
coaching
in the
in the
lab,
fucking
bro.
lab,
Get me
bro.
in the
That's what I'm
lab.
saying, bro.
Where's the Medify section for getting swole?
That's what I'm saying, bro. Yeah.
Bro, did you guys see that tweet where him with the bench press? That was like what, 4
Oh, I
plates
saw,
on
I
each
saw.
side?
Yo,
What is
4
that?
plates?
Was that like
Ain't
3
no
plates?
way, bro.
I don't even
That's
think I
crazy.
ever squatted that much, bro. You know what the hell, bro?
I can't even fathom deadlifting that much.
I don't think I can deadlift that much either, bro.
That's
No,
what I'm
facts.
saying.
Lightweight.
Man made that shit look easy too. You know, I'm struggling out here
He's
getting
ripped,
like 165, 170 up, bro. Psh, oh.
Yeah, he's ripped.
Put me on, bro.
Bruh. I'm
What's-
saying, bro, imagine hacking that man out across the table, bro, and him looking at
Oh,
you, bro. I'm
shut-
feeling,
yo, imagine-
I'm feeling kind of small, bro. That's
Imagine
all
you hit 4 fissures on that motherfucker, bro.
Dude, I'm signing the slip. I'm signing loss if that happens.
I'm not clicking
Holy.
fissure against him, bro, just in case I hit.
Mm.
Also, we're not insinuating that he would ever do anything to physically
yeah.
harm somebody.
Nah, but
Yeah.
We're just
That's what I'm saying.
recognizing that if it were a universe where that
More
could
security.
happen, we would need to value our own safety.
hey, I've been saying though for years, I've been a big proponent of VGC Fight Club. I'm just saying,
Hey, no.
I'm putting money into that shit, bro. I'm sponsoring.
Yo, he tweeted about this. He said he
Years,
could organize a fight club, bro.
$100
Yeah.
into the pot, free.
Yo, if there's
VGC
a
boxing.
VGC,
Yo,
if
VGC
there's
box- yo.
Fight Club,
Bro, I'm in, bro. I'm in.
Yo, 100%, bro. I'm gonna see Lorcy in there, bro.
Yeah.
Bro. That man gonna be howling, bro. Yo, Hal Arcanine, shout
Bro,
out
give
to
me
my
Chipper
boy
round
Lor-
1, bro. Give me
Lorcy.
Chipper round 1.
If there was
Hey,
ever
though.
VGC boxing, I would love to step into the ring with Dylan Salvanera and just let him hit me because he
Yo.
deserves it.
Oh,
After Charlotte, bro, he's allowed to hit me as much as he wants. I take like 6 or 7 shots and be like, all right, I'm out. See ya.
You got it, bro. You got it. Nah, I'm saying VGC boxing, like they've been doing these the chess boxing events. I'm saying Wolf, bro, you've been killing it lately with the content. This is one way to take it to the next level. Get the VGC boxing going. You got the 4 of us here that are willing to participate or support you in any way possible to make it happen. So Wolf, have your people talk to our people. Oh wait, Justin, you are Wolf's people, bro. Like you one of his boys.
Wait, we're already talking to the people. Hold
That's
on.
what I'm saying. Yo, Justin, you got a line, bro? Have Wolf call that shit for us. Let's get this going.
Yeah.
We
I
got
don't
some
know,
cash
man.
money
I
to
don't.
make.
I don't think that'll ever happen, but I do think I love talking about the concept in theory. But to get back on topic, let's go over Fort Wayne stuff real quick.
Yeah,
Oh,
for
yeah,
sure.
for sure, for
I
sure.
mean, one thing I want to talk about is all the fissures, right? This is one big point of contention that we've been seeing as Reg C kind of developed is the development of AV. What is it? Ting Lu? Is
Ting
that-
Lu, shout out
Ting
to
Lu?
Fiona.
Mhm,
Shout
mhm.
out to Fiona. You hit them fishers. I love it, bro.
Out of
I mean,
5
I feel
fishers,
sorry
bro.
for your opponent at the time, but
Listen,
I love the fact that you hit
Luca,
them.
I don't blame Luca for walking off, bro. I would have walked off. Honestly.
That man was heated.
But yo, the thing
it's
is,
option.
Like, go ahead,
It's
yeah, yeah,
option,
go ahead.
and you have to respect it. Like that's the problem with the thing is like if you let that Pokemon sit on the field, it's sometimes your opponent, if they have the option, they're gonna click it, and it's something that you can't account for all the time. But it's like you have to respect it. You're playing in the format, you know it can happen, and Luca was on the bad end of that in his Swiss round against Fiona, and Fiona did a great job. I think they played to their outs and they fucking killed it. You know, went 5-0 on day 2, if I'm correct.
Yeah,
And,
top
Yeah, went
eight.
5-0 in day
Yeah.
2 Swiss.
yeah, that's
And
crazy.
then ended up getting top 4.
And the
Yeah,
thing
no,
is, you're
shout
not
outs to Fiona.
you're not
it
doing
was-
that just clicking
great
fissures.
round.
You're doing that because you're nice as fuck at the game.
Oh, she's
Like,
good.
Exactly.
She's good.
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
absolutely. I would like to point out that Luca ended up getting top 4 as well without
There you go.
Fissure on their Assault
Consistent.
Fest team.
Same.
And again, like to talk about the competitive viability of it, this is probably the format where
Mhm.
Fissure on a Pokemon is the most ethical. Whether or not it's fair that you can hit them kind of like almost willy-nilly. But I mean, personally, a guy like me, I'm not clicking Fissure ever. I don't like it. but it's viable. I mean, it's a completely valid option, and I would really encourage people to explore other options for the health of the game. But I think we're going to be stuck with it, like even all the way up to Worlds. There's not really a better fourth move slot. Like I think Luca ran Earthquake. So
Stomping Tantrum, but he ran Terra Ground, I think, on his Tinglu. A lot
it
of
was Terra
players are running
Grass.
Poison.
It was Terra Grass. If it was
Was
Terra
it?
Ground, maybe Earthquake is even more justifiable. But I mean, really, like Fissure is probably the best last move that you can have there. It's great into like Dolly teams. It's great into Dondozo, and it's an option to like win you games that you don't deserve to win. So
I was telling this to Ant earlier. Like I just feel like with AV like Tinglu, like you need something in the fourth move slot, right? Like you could run Stomping Tantrum, Earthquake, whatever you want to run, but like a lot of times, like you have like just like you said, you have like an unfavorable matchup, and you have no business winning that. And Fiona literally said this in her post game interview that she didn't have a good matchup into Luca's team, and the only way she was gonna win that is she just hit fissures, and she did.
4 for 5.
Literally won her the entire set because she played him in Swiss and she got bodied. That's what she said in the interview. And by hitting Fisher, she won the matchup. So like you're gonna have some unfavorable matchups no matter what team you're bringing. Like to have an option to just it's literally one move that you're sacrificing on one of your Pokemon. So just to have an option, I mean 30% that sometimes can feel like 70% apparently, right? Because Fiona hit it 4 out of 5 times. It's like if you just have an option to just one shot a mon, like you don't, because you have a lot of mons in the format right now in Series 3, Regulation C, whatever, where mons are just sitting on the field, right? You have like you have Arcanines, you have Mungus, King Gambit.
They're all grounded.
Things that are just sitting on the field. If you can just spam fissures and be able to just one shot it, like that's such a huge swing in games, honestly.
Yeah, and I think a big thing too is like this is something that you have to respect in the builder. You need to have something that either levitates or is a flying Pokemon, or if you're playing into a Tinglu, like the Pokemon that you want to terrestrialize is gonna have to be a flying type. So like again, I think that that's something that you can build around. I think it's something you can play around too. You can redirect if you're really that scared of Fissure. There was a lot of situations in that set between Fiona and Luca where his game plan was to just try and dodge the Fissure. So like you can do things to work around that type of game plan. But again, I mean, in some cases,
King Gambit didn't really help either.
Yeah, exactly. Like I mean, she hit the fissures into the King Gambit, which was like the linchpin of Luca's team, and that's part of it. That's kind of a team building error. If you're going into a format where you know that people are going to run Fissure on Tinglu, you need to have something to at least pivot around it, because it's not like it's doing that much damage to anything anyway. Like if you're afraid of Fissure, then like you can pivot into it.
Yeah. Piggybacking off that, this is a great plug for terrestrialization, where you can go Terra Flying and just avoid that completely. But only on that one Pokemon. But yeah, that's a great part about the mechanic that that's overlooked. I think, like especially in team building. I mean, the format's brand new, but I think we're gonna see a lot more like Terra Flying, options to totally just wall getting bodied by Fissure. Because you know what? At the end of the day, it feels bad, man. It definitely feels bad.
The thing is too, like I feel like Fissure's just gonna be a mainstay because it enables Stomping Tantrum so much. It's like,
oh yeah.
If you miss a Fissure, bet I get 150 power base move the next turn to destroy the mon. Like that I would have been knocking out with Fissure anyway. So it's like I don't see a downside to it. And I can't even blame players for leaning into it sometimes.
Even when you miss, that shit is good, bro.
Right, exactly. Like. You get an advantage, so it's like you go plus regardless. Either you pick up a knockout or you get more base power on the subsequent turns. So
yeah,
I'm all for it.
But even still, I mean, Fissure didn't win, so
right, exactly. And I'm glad it didn't, because I think it would be a lot more degen. Leading into this IC coming up this week, more people are going to be spamming that shit on top of the other aids that we're going to be playing.
If I banded Dragapult on ladder, bro, I'm gonna lose it.
Come on, bro. This shit just won the regional. Of course you're gonna see that shit.
Bro, I'm gonna fucking lose it, dude.
I guess you tilted, bro. More CP for me.
Speaking of the IC coming up, there's one strategy, Justin, that I have had. This has been in my death note. Like I'm writing this strategy down. Like I just want it erased from the entire game. But it's Mouse 8, bro. I cannot. Like I don't want to see it. I don't want to see it, bro.
For the last week, Man's
Let me
been
give you the rundown on the mouse
punch
ape.
in
and
the
what
air
my
every time he
issue
faces
is.
the shit.
What my issue is, the thing about mouse ape is that I think it would be more balanced if Rage Fist didn't last when the Pokemon switched out, because it'd be manageable. But the thing is, mouse not only buffs ape by just like friend guard, your redirection. You can't even sport it because they're probably running safety goggles. You can't burn it because they're probably Terrifier. Like, the thing about mouse ape is that you can't just like like, all right, for Dozo you could have just ran like haze and just, all right, cool, I solved the Dozo problem. And DDR Rouge, all right, I got 2 dark types, all right, we're good there. Mouse ape, you have to like have lines into mouse ape. You don't just slap a Pokemon and be like, all right, or 2 Pokemon, all right, we dealt with mouse ape. No, you gotta exploit the Terra, kill the mouse, then kill the ape. Like, how do you feel about that strategy? Because it really like grinds my gears.
I think mouse ape is overrated. It's not that strong of a strategy when you have like just a decent amount of spread moves on your team. Like, the easiest way to beat it is force it to Terra and then kill it with
gleaming that shit, bro. Force of Terrifier, you bring in Tusk, Earthquake, boom.
Yeah, I'll just lead Talonflame, Flutter, and then get a Tailwind off. Honestly, sometimes I'll just lead Talon Tusk. Like, they have to get a bulk up off. They can't KO you back. I have a fat enough defense stat. I can taunt the mouse if I need to. It's really not that strong into like good spread. I think Garchomp does well into it. Flutter does well into it.
Flutter Tusk is a really good counter against it.
Yeah, the thing is too, once you pin it, it's very manageable. If you pin the Terra on it, they burn the Terra on their lead, and then they have a useless mon and mouse on the field. Like, it's just redirecting. And if you could get the momentum going early, they lose 2 mons for free.
Yeah,
but I can see
it.
Don't get me wrong.
Exactly.
I'm not saying that.
You have to
I'm not saying that like it's unbeatable. I'm just saying that it requires like lines into it for a lot of the times. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, the fact that 2 Pokemon can require like maybe 3 Pokemon to deal with it.
I think that Terra and Annihilate is really important. Whether it's Terra Fire or Terra Water, Terra Steel now, like, I think that's really important.
Look, man, all I'm going to say is Fluttermane and Great Tusk do a hell of a lot of damage to that thing. Just lead one of them, spam. It takes time to set up, so. And mouse isn't like something that stays on the field for very long, so like they're forced to protect it, or they're forced to like switch in and out. Like, it's very easy to play around. You just have to like be able to threaten it with spread moves.
Got you.
Yeah, we do have to wrap this up. I think we're running pretty long now. If anyone has any closing remarks, I know Ann wants to talk about Sydney regionals a little bit, or if anyone wants to add anything in regards to Series 3, closing remarks on Series 2, whatever, go ahead. Now's the time.
I mean, I just wanted to bring up, we didn't only just have Fort Wayne regionals. We had Sydney as well. And again, another level, like, consistency. You see so many players that have been playing for a long time, like Sam Pandelis came in second, Nicholas Kahn, Megan Rattle. Like, it's just a ton of players. And it just goes to show, like, consistency is here. We actually saw some Wo-Chien in top 8, which in Fort Wayne we didn't see any of. So, what you guys think of Wo-Chien's ass? Because I think it's ass, personally. That's just me.
I'm actually really worried about Australia going into like the international stage, because if they have, 1, 2, 3 Wo-Chien in their top 8, then I don't think they're ahead of the curve. I think they're behind it.
Wo-Chien's mid?
Oh, Wo-Chien is super mid, and anybody that says anything otherwise is lying to you.
Live Wo-Chien reaction 100%. Right now, bro.
Worse Intimidate. It's literally worse Intimidate, bro.
It's also just bad in the beginning of the meta, in my opinion, because if you're using like bulky fat stuff right away, like you're gonna get gunned down by super offensive teams. And like Wo-Chien doesn't put on a lot of pressure. It's not like it's KOing you back. It's just reducing like some physical attackers. And it has terrible typing, so it's a Terra Hog. There's no real partner that like really benefits from it as well. I think like the best partner it has maybe like Lamora that benefits from it, and that's all just very reactive. And VGC has like Regulation C is full of offense, so you have to be very careful running something like Wo-Chien. I'm not saying that there won't be a time and a place for it, but I don't know, man. Australia, I'm looking at these teams, and other than 8 for 8 on Fluttermane, I don't know what they're doing.
Lose supremacy.
Yeah, got you there. Yeah, I think you know what's crazy? Amoonga is one of the most popular, tanks in the meta, bro. Just straight up bodies him with Talon Tough, bro. Like, come on.
That's what I'm saying. Like, how's a defensive mon, bodying your pick for the Ruin mon? Like, I don't know, it just feels like a wasted team slot where, again, Amoonguss is a better grass type, and it doesn't do much for your team because it's worse than Intimidate in my opinion. So it's hard to justify using, like you said early on, when everything's so offensive, because you're doing a negligible debuff. Tusk is still hitting everything on your team hella hard. Talon, all these other physical attackers they're out and about. Even the Ting Lus are hitting you hard because it's only a 25% drop. And honestly, maybe I'm not respecting the mon enough, but I think it's ass.
I will say that like Gyarados is a good adaptation. We're seeing
Mhm.
Gyarados come back a little bit into the fold,
Yep.
and I think part of that is Tinglu. But again, like in a Fluttermane dominated meta, like Wo-Chien suffers the most from that. Like Fluttermane, Chi-Yu, like there's so many things that do well into Wo-Chien. It's not the greatest Pokemon in my opinion.
Right.
And as you'll see in that top cut, pretty much literally all three of the Wo-Chien teams did have a Glamora, but again, it's like you're playing a very stally game. It's reactive. You're opening yourself up to getting crit or burned or flinched. There's just too many things that can go wrong, too many variables that you can't really account for. I'm very much a firm believer in like if you go first, things are more likely to go your way. So speed control is important. You don't want to play reactive unless you have to.
No, it makes a lot of sense. That's one thing like on the pod we've discussed before. It's like, being in the driver's seat with the faster mons usually makes it so you're not as hexed out, just because you're not as susceptible to flinches, crits, all those things. You're getting more moves off, so you have more opportunities to do that to your opponent, which is great. Another thing I wanted to just touch on is the dominance of Fluttermane. As we saw Series 2 move forward and moving into Series 3.
I dropped my water bottle.
I pick that shit up, my boy. Do your thing.
Yeah, pick up your water bottle, my guy.
Thanks for announcing.
No, I thought you heard it.
But anyways, yeah, going back to usage of Fluttermane, like just constantly increasing, and we're seeing it at 75% usage at Fort Wayne. Like it's crazy. I think everyone needs to be prepared for this mon because it's so good into not only all the ruined Pokemon, but just a lot of Pokemon in general. So it'll definitely be interesting to see people pick up random picks just to kind of deal with that Pokemon as it's been so dominant in this format. It literally feels like a mini Xerneas in a lot of ways.
I mean, did we touch on Justin Tang and his dominance in the last 3 regionals?
Yo, Justin Tang,
guy's
this
different,
kid
bro.
is cracked.
Different.
I don't know what the fuck these kids
So
are
cracked, my guy.
eating in their cereal these days, but like
3
Jesus
for
Christ.
3 for 3 in day 2s, 2 for 3 in
Regional win?
for regional wins. Yeah, like I tweeted something today. It was like a repeat of last week. Justin beats Luca to move on to face Joe in the finals, and then Justin wins again. It's like the VGC script. It was a little repetitive, but I'm all for it. Both Justins, big fans of them both. A little bit more of a fan of the Carris, but that's just because that's my guy.
I'm a big Justin Tang fan too. Like I played him twice at Knoxville. And both times I was extremely impressed. Like he makes very good plays. He's not too risky. Feels like when he does go for reads, they're usually right, or they're at least neutral. They're either giving him something or taking something away from the opponent. And it's very rare to see a player of that caliber just like pop out of the woodwork. So I said it from day one. I was like, I messaged all of my groups. I was like, guys, Justin Tang is going to be a problem. And that was just after playing him the first time.
Right.
That was before his win. That was before he won again. And I'm excited to see what his VGC career develops into, because he's off to one of the best starts we've ever seen.
Yeah, for sure. When I think back, I think to Wolf's start, where he just dominated the scene from the onset. Justin's doing something similar, and only time will tell if he could, take it to the next level at Internets and even at Worlds. I'm excited
we
to
have
see
to see how he does
where
at
it goes.
NAIC and at Worlds.
Exactly. Maybe he has it in him to do the legendary, triple W,
Regional, national,
regional.
world.
Exactly. No one has done it yet. Wolf came very close back in the day, but we haven't seen someone dominate at that kind of level yet. So it'll be interesting, and I think if he does do it, maybe he's up there in the GOAT conversations next year. Like, I don't know. I'm just
Next
saying.
year, he needs 3-4 more years of this shit, bro. But like he's on pace. He's on pace. I'll give it to him.
Come
I'll
on,
tip
bro.
it.
Like if he keeps it up like that, that's a crazy season.
He's on pace. That'll
Nah,
wait,
he's
so-
performing very well, and again, I think it's a testament to his play style and his composure. I mean, just being in that top 8 and then winning
Mhm.
twice is crazy. That's like very
sure.
unprecedented. I mean, Sajin in 2011, Wolf in 2011, like that's the type of caliber we're looking at.
Right.
Yeah.
And what's funny is I think the only thing really holding him back is whether or not he's allowed to go to tournaments.
I gotta make sure it's cool with the parents, right? You know, we've all been in that position before where it's like,
How old is he?
he's young, bro. He's in college.
He's 18 or 19.
Yeah, he's
Oh,
really
wow.
young. But even Semper, look at Semper. That dude's like 17 and killed it.
These
Look,
young
man,
bloods are crazy with it.
If I wasn't in the day 2 race, I would be asking to talk to his parents to encourage them to send him to more tournaments. But I
Mhm.
need that kid to not knock me
Ah,
out of
yo.
the top 8 standings.
We're gonna
That's
say
what I'm saying,
encourage
he's
his parents to
taking-
let him stay home, bro.
I know. Stay home for now, bro. Like, I'm trying to get these.
Yeah,
these
study, bro.
monies.
Yo, tell him he gotta study, bro. Like
That's
no,
what I'm
no show up to
saying.
tournaments anymore.
Yeah, I mean, because the only reason he's not winning a tournament is because he's not there.
Not there.
at
That's
this
what I'm
point.
saying.
Right. That's insane.
Dude is cracked for sure. Right now, Justin, where do you know where you're at in the CP standing in terms of ranked for NA?
For
After-
NA, after this weekend, I am 15th. Yeah, 15th. So I have
Okay, okay.
360. The 8th place is 500 at
Mhm.
Colin Higher. So I'm like
Got you.
a decent ways back, but I haven't been to any of the internationals yet.
Right,
I'm
and
going to EUIC.
you mentioned
and
it. Yeah,
NAIC.
you'll be at EUIC, so we're looking forward to see you perform there. I'm still holding out. I'm hoping that they open up freaking slots for this tournament. Like I've been trying to register, but I got unlucky with the 3 waves. But I'm hoping that they
Yeah, I
they
mean,
open
dude,
some more.
the day 2 race is going to be ridiculous this year because I was estimating that top 8 bar would end up be somewhere around like 1,000 to 1,200, and it might be way higher than that.
That's what I'm
if
saying. Like
The top players keep performing like this.
yeah, that's the thing. It feels like the top players are just super consistent right now, and it's a great thing to see because we're kind of building characters in the narrative for the VGC scene. You know, there's a lot of players that we could keep up with and see how they're doing as the season progresses. Whereas in the past, like it felt like you had a handful that did well here and there, and then new faces. Like right now, I think it's a great time to get involved with VGC and like learn what's going on with the scene just because of that. So many players are playing super consistently and doing well.
Big shout outs to Wolf, bro. He's been
That's
to
a
no
guy.
internationals so far, and
he's still up there.
fifth in the standings
That's what I'm
at
saying.
620.
Everyone's lucky he had those weddings to go to.
I don't know. Tang
yeah.
and Wolf, that's the only thing stopping them is not being there.
For sure, for sure. I mean, it's good to see players do well. I'm hoping to catch up to you guys. Rayad, Sheldon, and I, we've been playing for a while, so we're trying to take it to the next level. Maybe some coaching from your end might help us out. But I just want to thank you again for hopping on the pod with us, having this conversation. I know you dodged us with the drink when we were in Charlotte because you had to prep for day 2, but it was well
We had a
worth it.
tournament to win.
Dude
Well
said
worth it.
he literally said to us, I had a tournament to win, and lo and behold, the man's did it.
He
Once in a
delivered, he
while.
delivered.
That's what I'm
Definitely
saying.
30th time is a charm, I'll say.
It'd be like that, you were due for that win. I told you that a couple weeks before Charlotte. I was like, I saw you play at a local, and you were kind of just killing it at that local. I was like, yo, you playing like this, bro? You're winning fucking Charlotte, and he did it, man. I'm proud of you, my boy.
Appreciate
Yeah.
it, man. I mean, yeah, I'm definitely in my prime again. I feel very confident as a player. I'm excited for EUIC, and thanks for having me on this. I'm
Yeah,
always
for
down
sure.
to discuss Pokemon. You guys actually run an excellent podcast. I listened to the one that
you.
you guys did after Orlando and loved it. You guys are doing everything right that other people are doing wrong. Your sound quality's good. You guys are really efficient. You get through your topics quickly. You're not talking over each other. So definitely, if anybody that's tuning in, listen to more of these because this should be the gold standard.
Hey, we appreciate the kind words, my boy.
Yeah. Hey, we definitely appreciate it, and we're actually wrapping up the podcast here. But thank you for those remarks, Justin, and it was a pleasure. On behalf of all of us here to have you, and it was a really great experience. I think we definitely learned a lot, and I hope the listeners enjoyed and learned, and it's cool seeing a different side of you that people don't get to see you know, whether it's the Twitch or just being at the event, and it was amazing. Do you have any other remarks you want the listeners or the viewers or you know whichever the audience to hear before we close out?
Dude,
Any
go pick up
socials?
your Switch. Pick up your Switch, get a team, and go to these tournaments because they have been so fire. And Pokemon has been so much fun to play, and everybody's getting better. And now is the chance. Like rookies are winning tournaments. Go be the next great. Like nothing is stopping anyone from doing that. Pokemon's in a great spot. I think that the community is more accepting than it's ever been. It's been like the players that I'm playing against are extremely kind. Like that's one of the biggest reasons why I'm such a big fan of Justin is he's so respectful and so kind and encouraging, and he's active in the community. And I feel like a lot of the people at the top are like that. People that like are humbled by their own success. And if you need help, you know, reach out. There's tons of coaches. I don't always charge for coaching. Like if you want to just ask me questions, feel free to DM me on Twitter. That's probably where I'll be most responsive. I'm always down to talk shop. We can talk Pokemon. We can talk, you know, like how to get locked in for performances, what you need to do, even financially at times, because something that I didn't really get to go into is like there will be times where you know the bank account's looking a little low, but I got a Pokemon tournament coming up on the weekend, and you know if this is what you want to do, this is your hobby or this is your passion. Sometimes you have to you know evaluate whether or not you can go. I didn't go to Fort Wayne this weekend, partially because it's too much travel, it's too much you know resources being drained from you know financials. But pick your spots, pick the events that you can go to, and again, as I said, like never be shy. Like ask people for help. You need friends in this game. You need connections. You need people to grow with. And this is definitely a community that is super open arms.
Sick, sick. And last thing, before you go, well, can you plug your socials? So where can people find you at, and where can they reach out?
You can find me pretty much only on Twitter. That's all I'm ever really active on is Azazel underscore the underscore God. Um, and then I don't know. I mean, I don't really do YouTube or anything like that. So yeah, Twitter's where it's at, even though it's being driven into the ground. But I mean, I love Twitter. I'll always, you know, answer a DM if you send it my way.
Got it, got it. Yeah, maybe we'll have you back on another podcast and just discuss the rise and fall of Twitter. But yeah, on behalf of everyone at TM87, and thank you so much for Justin for being here. You know, our Charlotte regional champion. We will be signing out, and we hope to see you in the next one.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Yes, sir.
Thank you
Later.
much. Peace.
All right, cut recording, cut recording. Yeah, that
Yeah,
was
yeah, cut the
great.
shit.
That was really fun.